welcome to an unexpected Bloods and Muds rugby podcast. The podcast that so far hasn't been subject to a copyright notice from World Rugby, but I feel like by the end of maybe if I do a really, really authentic impression of Alan Gilpan, then maybe we'll get one by the end of the show. I don't know. I am Josh. I was not expecting to be here tonight. I'll level with you. Lee, unfortunately, has had to pull out at the last minute. I was originally not very well and also not going to be here. So I am here now. But this is literally, I've not done any preparation for this podcast whatsoever. Thankfully, though, I have two people who I know do genuinely exhaustive levels of prep for any podcast they turn up on. So I'll leave it all.
Who are they?
You guys. I'll leave it all up to
Yeah.
We've got Tricia Vieira and Will Owen. I'll leave it all to you guys, right? Yeah. I mean, I could just.
I'm pretty sure I said to Will earlier on that I don't even really remember who played this weekend, but that is exhaustive prep apparently.
I mean, you say that now. I'm literally just about to bring World Rugby's website up so that I can double check what games actually.
It's fine. We've said the word rugby far too many times by now. Like, this podcast will get taken down, and no one will ever hear all the stuff that we didn't know. Like, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh wow, we've actually got people watching on the live stream. I didn't know if that would happen either. There's 2 people, 3 people. Oh Jesus. Oh,
we need to just pull a World Rugby and make sure that no more than 3 people see this. Okay.
Yeah.
If more people see this, they might actually find out that there's a Rugby World Cup on, and that can't happen.
No.
If nothing else, we need to ensure that as few people know about the Rugby World Cup as is humanly possible. I mean, barely anybody seems to be knowing that it's going on anyway. So if we can just kind of find a way to alienate those last few people who are aware it's going on, then really World Rugby will have done its job. I think we can all agree.
The problem is France didn't get that memo because I live about 150 meters away. Like where I'm staying in Paris is about 150 meters away from a train station, and there are 3 like massive posters of Roman Ntamack between here and that train station, and he's not even playing in the tournament. So like, they're not doing a good job of like keeping the Rugby World Cup a secret.
So you say that, but I kind of feel like that would be the case whatever time you went to Paris. Like, why wouldn't you have 3 massive like buildings?
I think everywhere should be covered in pictures of Roman Ntamack at all times.
I mean, I don't see how it would make the world a worse place if we were all just constantly admiring his perfect hair.
It's been such a shock to the system coming back to Nottingham and then not being Roman Ntamack and Antoine Dupont around every corner.
So why haven't you been putting up pictures of Roman Ntamack and Dupont every corner?
I need to take this into my own hands. Although World Rugby will probably,
Yeah. Nottingham's
You look out your window and you just see Bill Beaumont looking at you.
What I think World Rugby are doing, it's like when in school you're given an assignment to write a story, and then you write it, you think that's a bit embarrassing. I need to make sure it gets to the teacher without any of my friends seeing it. That's essentially what World Rugby are doing to the broadcasters. Make sure no actual viewers see it. Just make sure that the broadcasters technically show it.
Yeah, I mean, you've revealed quite a lot about your school life there, Will. Straight off the bat.
Unashamedly.
But yeah, it's like I can imagine a world where like you turned yourself into sort of like a Nottingham Banksy, sort of putting up Rugby World Cup related tags all over the place, and Bill Beaumont was literally just following behind you in one of those vans with like the brushes and literally just brushing it. So before anybody had a chance to see it, you can't even they can't even like knock it down and take it off to the Tate or anything like that. It's like, no, he wants that gone. He wants that out of here.
Banksy's made a good career for himself. Nothing is as abstract as Antoine Dupont's Instagram captions. So that's where I draw all my inspiration from.
I mean, he is basically like some sort of like, for a man who's tweeting in a second language, it's the sort of profundity with which he and the like sort of arched eyebrow of everything that he does on social media. I've just got so much time for it.
He tweets in rupee car poems, and you just have to kind of rate that like level of just making shit up for your captions. I love it.
I mean, like the one that he did yesterday, where he was doing weights with his black eye, and it was weight as in WAIT lifting, because he's waiting to be back in. It's so good. Like there shouldn't be levels to it. When you're,
I want to know if he workshops them. Like, I want to know if he goes up to, you know, like Jalabert or someone and goes, "What do you think of this caption? Like, which of these 4 emojis would you put in this caption?"
No.
He's got a room of writers.
He goes to Tom Ramos and goes, "It's weird enough," and he's like, "Yeah, and that is the bellwether." You know, if Tom Ramos goes, "Oh, I think it's a bit kind of pedestrian, to be honest with you," I'm like, back to the drawing board. But if Tom Ramos is like, "Yeah, that sounds like something mad I would say or do," then I fucking tweet that immediately or X that. I don't know. Nobody's saying, God, it's really not going well, this whole X thing, is it?
Yeah, but when you send a tweet, it still says twitter.com/whatever. So, like, you know, what is he trying to achieve?
Well, I mean, you can ask a lot of questions about what Elon Musk is trying to achieve, and the answer is nothing good to any of those things. But yes, thank you.
I think he's just jealous that he's not as funny as Drill, and he's just trying to silence Drill
No one
under any means necessary.
Nobody's actually as funny as Drill.
I will spend billions of dollars. I will spend billions of dollars if it means that this guy will not be funny anymore.
If only I can stop Antoine Dupont from being incredibly profound, but also funny in second language and just making me look real bad.
Antoine Dupont and Drill collab when?
Oh my god.
Oh my god, imagine it. But also, like, do you ever think about the fact that Elon Musk is sort of technically a Springbok fan?
No, I hadn't until now, but it really puts a lot of things into perspective.
Doesn't it just? It's like, you know, I know he's kind of like sort of tried to pretend that he isn't South African, but he is.
Do you think he had Razzie Erasmus's phone number? Because I feel like he would have really enjoyed the yellow circle thing. I
feel like there's a sort of, they might workshop each other's social media presence, is all I'm saying.
Jesus Christ.
Like, imagine it.
No matter how many people say either of them are wrong and that their ideas are stupid, they both have an insane level of confidence to back it up. And in fairness, Razzie's had enough good ideas to counterbalance that. Elon, slightly less so. But
yeah, like the difference is, like, Razzie actually did win the World Cup. Like, all Elon Musk did was set a few cars on fire and lose a load of money.
Hey, he sent that one car to Mars. I mean, it hasn't got there yet, but you know, it was. I mean, it's just obviously going to pay off. I mean, I don't know. I feel very like, because I like space nerd shit, right? I'm big into like exploring space and all that stuff, and I just feel very cheated that now, like, exploring space is now the preserve of some of the biggest dickheads who ever existed. You know.
So why haven't you sent a car to space? Like, if you didn't get vaccinated, you probably would have sent a car to space by now.
Well, exactly, yeah. And yet I did, and here I am. Just
no cars in space.
No cars, 0 cars in space.
You're on Earth. I can see it in the background.
Yeah, I'm on the 2nd floor, but that's about as close as I'm going to get to space right now. I mean, Elon Musk hasn't been. That's the thing. Elon Musk could go to space if he wanted to. Like, he's sending freaking rockets up all the time, and
so
this is my
problem with like mega rich people, is that, like, they are they're so boring. Why aren't you spending all that money either like helping people or doing really just fucking cool shit? But all they do is like
what?
But like, you could literally, you know, like, wipe out the debt of like 60 countries and then with your leftover money go to space or like buy a roller coaster or something. But they just don't do that. They're just so unimaginative. It's unbelievable.
Buy fucking Twitter. Why do you want that?
How many roller coasters could he have bought for Twitter? He probably bought all the roller coasters, to be honest. Probably could have bought Disney World. But no.
Then the roller coasters wouldn't be safe anymore. So
it would now be called X World, Disney World, of course.
God. You know that within 10 years that is going to exist.
Josh, I think something funny happened to your microphone just then.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just extremely tickled by the fact that somebody commenting on our live stream going, "Wait, is there a pod tonight?" Yeah. Hi.
Surprise!
Hello. Anyway, yes, I don't have any of the usual stuff to tell you. I don't like. We can't begin the podcast as we always do with a player spotted. I don't have a player spotted.
Oh, the whole Oyonnax squad walked past me in Lyon Airport. If that helps.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
And
It's like a really disappointing amount of player spotted in that I've had 0 player spotted. I've been here since the day before the tournament started. I have not seen one rugby player that hasn't been like actually on the pitch playing a game of rugby.
oh man,
So
I've
it's
seen
really
quite a
disappointing.
few. I walked past. I made a really awkward eye contact with Reece Priestland after the France-New Zealand game. It was with Mike Phillips and Jason Mohamed.
I saw Emile Entamac at the opening game, and I was.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I was kind of like, he was just walking through like in the crowd outside, and I was like, I wonder is Roman with him, or is Roman with the France squad? I was kind of like trying to suss out what the situation was. And my dad saw Stuart Lancaster at the same game, and I was like, oh, did you talk to him? Because they kind of half know each other. I was like, did you talk to him? He was like, no, I didn't want to interrupt him, like he was, enjoying his day or whatever. I was like, you could have just said, hello, Stuart.
Yeah,
But apparently not.
I not. Go on. Oh, you finished. Sorry.
I was going to say, I mean, I went to London today. I didn't see any rugby players because, and to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't, because I feel like London's quite a low. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but like areas of high sort of yield of rugby players. So like West London and sort of Surrey, tremendously high yield, for obvious reasons. Like Leamington Spa used to be, probably not so much now.
Oh yeah,
Leamington Spa
full of
used
the Wasp
to be
squad.
Full of the Wasp squad, full of players.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. indeed. And now they've all had to move. Obviously, kind of various areas of Limerick are probably quite high yield. Bath's incredibly high yield because it's a tiny little town.
Yeah, Limerick is so small that it's kind of either they're at training, which means they're in the university and you just see them all the fucking time, or they're like in Lackachina Central, which is actually closed now, which is very sad. Or like the very specific bit of South Dublin where they all are, because they're not often in the city. But like if you're in the right sort of pocket outside the city, they're just all there all the time. I've never been to Dundrum shopping centre in my life and not seen at least 2 Leinster rugby players there.
I do just want to quickly say as well. So the player spotted on Blood and Mud is basically my favourite section of any podcast that exists, right? And I'm very privileged that you've asked me to be on here.
You're not getting it tonight. Yeah.
So I just want to very quickly tell you that this year at Glastonbury, just after Yusuf Cat Stevens had finished, who I'd missed, and before Blondie were on, I was walking along a very crowded path on the pyramid stage, and one of my friends just turned around to me, pointed at someone, and I was like, what? Then he pointed again and went, it's Josh Turnbull.
Surely not.
And it was Josh Turnbull.
How would you recognise Josh Turnbull?
Oh, because I've watched a lot of regional rugby in the last 10, 15 years, and not a lot of Welsh internationals. But I've watched all 13 of the ones he's played. But yeah, I checked his Instagram story the next day, and he did indeed watch Blondie.
Wow. I mean, this is the thing. I don't think you so much recognise Josh Turnbull as you sort of like you recognise the void that his presence creates.
Yeah,
like null space, it's like an absence of person.
There was a force field around him. Everyone kind of was very aware of the gravitas that surrounded Josh Turnbull.
It was a very high, because John Davis was at Glastonbury this year as well.
He was, yeah.
So quite a high tariff of former Wales rugby players at Glastonbury compared to most years, I would say. I will say, John Davis, despite a man who's sort of, I know he hasn't retired, but he is functionally retired.
Sure.
For all intents and purposes. He is in unbelievable nick still. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, just, honestly, I genuinely think he's one of the most incredibly well-built men I've ever seen. Like, it's astonishing. I can't get over his physique.
I miss that guy.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying George North at 13, but what I wouldn't give for, like, John Davis to be, like, 3 years younger. Oof.
Yeah,
Oof. Imagine. Anyway, yes, so that's the sort of player spotted. I mean,
I had to tell a story somehow.
Will brought us Player Spotted, and it was a Josh Turnbull one, which is exactly the level of sort of bland and boring player that we expect. I feel like I've said a lot of horrible. I've got nothing against Josh Turnbull, right? But I do feel like I've just because he's like right to that threshold of being between mediocre and good.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm harsher to him than I am to genuinely mediocre
he's exactly
players.
the sort of player that would be really funny to just spot. Also,
Yes.
at that moment, because I'd had like a couple of pints at that point, I immediately texted Robbie about it, who was with Rhiannon Garth Jones. Robbie showed his phone to Rhiannon, and Rhiannon went, okay. Which I think is exactly the response which is warranted from, I just met Josh Turnbull. Not met. I just walked past Josh Turnbull.
It's kind of like it's that sort of level of mediocrity you can't sort of you sort of want to get excited about it, but like you feel like you should. Because, I've seen a famous person. Like when me and my wife went to New York about 10 years ago, we saw one of the personal trainers from the dreadful TV show that now doesn't exist, quite rightly so, Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition.
Oh, I thought you were going to say The Biggest Loser, and I was going to get really excited because my mother used to watch that with me all the time. That's why I have a bad brain now. But like, I was like, was it Bob or was it Gillian? Which one?
No, it wasn't Bob or Gillian. It was Chris Powell, who was one of the trainers of Extreme Weight Loss, Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition. And literally, we were just walking down a street in New York, and Rach just went like, "Oh my God, it's Chris Powell!" And I was like, "What?" And then she's like, "I don't know why I said that." And it was him, but it was just like she was so surprised to see somebody that she recognised that she got momentarily excited, and then realised that it was just such a crap celebrity.
Not noteworthy, yeah.
No, not even noteworthy. It's like genuinely, he just looks like everyone else in New York because he is. He's basically just a personal trainer, and
just a guy,
you know, just a personal trainer with no morals who indulges in unhealthy sort of dieting and weight loss regimens on very vulnerable people. So kind of not really a great guy, but still a celebrity. In the same way that Josh Turnbull, technically still a famous rugby player.
Yeah.
You wouldn't call him a celebrity though.
It would have been hilarious to get people coming up to him at Glastonbury like, Josh Turnbull, I'm such a fan of your game that you played against Scotland in 2011. Like, what would you say to Josh Turnbull other than just, I think you're good. You're a good player.
You've had a much better career than anybody expected.
I loved you in the Pro 12.
Yeah, all 450 times.
I mean, he is the absolute like embodiment of Yorso Club.
Oh yeah,
because 13 Wales caps is exactly the right number, I think, for yours, especially because it's 13 Wales caps over a period of 12 years.
Yeah.
So
I worry that a lot of Yorso Club players are getting too many caps now. But
it feels that way.
Billy Bealham has too many Ireland caps now, but at the same time, that is Yorso Club hair.
Good. I don't like that. He shouldn't be good.
It's not just Yorso Club hair. It's borderline offensive hair, and it's appropriating hair, and I don't like it.
Sometimes he has it unbraided, and it's in ringlets, and I'm like, what are we going for here?
Did everyone see the Rugby World Cup posting a 15 of players with the best/worst hair earlier, and Finlay Bealham wasn't in it?
Wow.
Who was in it then?
I can't remember his name, but there's the Chilean prop with backwards mullet that is shaven on top.
Do you know what? That's fair enough.
Yeah. Rico Ioane was in the centres. They had obviously had Jonathan Tamatani at 9.
How did you see that?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Bizarrely, that's the one thing they've not blocked.
It's that and whatever Nigel Owens is doing this week. They won't block those, but everything else, absolutely not. Oh dear me, I get it. Yeah, you're right about the Chilean prop, but to be honest with you, they haven't sort of said it's like a bad haircut.
They've put best/worst.
Best/worst.
Extremely vague.
And it's extremely borderline because a lot of those haircuts are just haircuts black people have.
Yeah.
I would
Like,
suggest that it is
it's like-
really not rugby values to be talking about best haircuts in the World Cup on an official platform once Roman Ntamack has been ruled out of the tournament.
Well, you commit to best or worst. Like,
Yeah.
best because otherwise, like, because James Lowe's in there, obviously, and rightly so. But like, and
Why say Naith Alevu? I think his hair is really nice.
his
And
hair's
Lewis
fucking
Dudley,
cool,
likewise.
man.
Yeah.
Maro
Glorious
Itoje's hair
heads of
is fucking cool.
Yeah.
Lewis
I mean,
Dudley's hair
let's just
is fucking cool.
charitably assume that they are best and not worst. Otherwise, we've got a bit of a problem.
Then Jonathan
Yeah,
Talmadge's in there. And Carter Gordon's in there.
Yeah, it's like Carter Gordon, fair enough. Like
Kyra
Talmadge,
Gordon's hair is just
fair enough.
Australian.
I mean, indeed. I mean, RG Snyman's in there, which I mean, I'm sure you're gonna have some thoughts on.
I don't understand the angularness of the mohawk. I don't get it.
It's got more right angles than I think it necessarily needs.
But he doesn't even have a square head. I don't even really know how he's done it. Like it just confuses me a little bit. You know, like I understand. I mean, it was never confirmed that he cut the long hair after he decided to burn himself, but that was when he cut his hair. So, like, I assume that his hair went on fire at one point. But yeah, it's just very square. It's like a Lego helmet in a really weird way.
It is a bit, yeah. It's like just being plonked on top of his head, like a sort of really shit wig. But obviously, it is attached; otherwise, it would come off unless they're using some serious glue. This deserves further investigation.
I'll ask.
Anyway, they should have just picked worst and then picked all the players with actual bad hair. But they've obviously tried to kind of go down a sort of like, we're not saying if these are bad or good, but some of them are obviously bad. Like Carter Gordon, obviously bad. James Lowe, obviously bad.
They couldn't do a good and a bad one because the problem is we are going through a 10-hair crisis at this World Cup. Like Roman Ntamack isn't there. You know, probably the sort of successor in terms of 10 hair is Joey Carberry, and for obvious reasons he's not at this World Cup either. And it's you know, what are we left with? Like Johnny Sexton's sort of old man fade and everyone else is sort of bald. It's frustrating. I understand now why World Rugby are blocking people from seeing this World Cup because that is a problem.
The hair is just not an intimate. I mean, Dan Bigger's got some quite good, like sort of Dan Bigger hair, but it is very kind of like I'm in my mid-30s and I'm still trying.
There's no bit of flop in it whatsoever. Like his hair is solid.
Yeah, it's like
body and movement.
Brush. Like Sexton's always gonna his hair's always gonna look like that. You can get all the skin fades he wants. It's still just gonna be this sort of like weird brush at the top of his head. There's
really just no body and movement, and the tournament's worse off for it.
I completely agree. Damien McKenzie's hair's in there. Damien McKenzie's hair is cool.
Damien McKenzie has great hair. Damien McKenzie has wonderful hair.
They won't but they've got him at 15 because they will not allow us to have good 10 hair at this World Cup.
What about like Ayarza from Chile? He has mental hair. Pick him.
Yeah. Why are we sort of? Oh, I'll tell you what, man. This
is just one of many things World Rugby have got wrong. This Rugby World Cup.
Did you see? I think it was Ben Coles who posted that.
If it was to do with the Rugby World Cup, no, we did not see it. Nobody saw it. Speaking of
sexy hair, I think it was Ben Coles that posted a photo of basically like England era Andy Farrell.
Yes.
On the bench. And
I can't lie.
There was some good
stuff there.
I mean, I'd forgotten that Andy Farrell was ever that sexy, to be honest with you. But Jesus.
You know, being a woman who sort of talks about rugby in like any sort of stupid capacity, I find sometimes that I try not to, you know, people will reduce me to being like, oh, well, she just thinks the players are hot.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes the players are hot, and like, there's no point in denying it because you saw that video of Andy Farrell, and you were like, I mean, undeniably, that's a hot man. He's still hot now. Like, there's no point in shying away from that.
Yes,
The
but
only reason he
particularly
was
with
like
his sort
rugby
of like wet look,
because somewhere
curly
else.
hair thing. Oh, I'd forgotten he had that. It's a. Where did it all go wrong with Owen? You know, they put together so similarly, and yet Owen is just not like, you know, he's a perfectly decent looking man, but he's not sexy. Whereas, you know, in his prime, Andy Farrell is a sexy ass man.
You know, 2007, Andy Farrell could have played James Bond. Like, it's that level of,
yeah.
of looks
Genuinely,
that we're
that's
talking
a
about.
good call.
God, imagine the sort of imagine how angry the sort of English rugby establishment would have been if a rugby league convert from Wigan had ended up being James Bond. I
A
mean,
northern James Bond.
honestly,
Nominate a
like
James Bond from this World Cup. Go.
ooh,
Robbie Henshaw.
Oh, Robbie Henshaw's a good call.
Bobby Henshaw would be a good
Instinctively,
call.
I like just based on pure looks alone. We've just spoken about him, but I would love to see a Waisea Naithalevu Bond film.
Oh, I would love
That would be good.
I mean, yeah, put him in a suit, and yeah, absolutely.
Actually, Francisco Fernandes from Portugal would be an incredible James Bond. That's who I want to see play James Bond.
Make that happen.
Yeah. What? In fact, why are we wasting his time still playing like rugby union? Like,
He got such a big cheer when he came on Sunday. It was really funny because, like, you could tell that the Australians and French people were like, "Why are they cheering?" We were all like, "Yeah!"
Yeah. So, like, we should probably talk about like not just who the sexiest rugby player at this World Cup is, or
Why not?
indeed in the past. Actually, yeah, I don't know. I'm not even convincing myself of that, am I? But I did tell you what, right? If we're talking like a sort of Daniel Craig, like he's not really that handsome, but he's got the sort of physique that looks like he could kill someone. Like, I feel like if you should have shoved Jack Morgan into a sort of a Tom Ford suit that's like 2 sizes too small, like they did with Daniel Craig, he would just sort of like have this kind of like orky menace about him. That's quite
Have me at Jack Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like he could just, you know, I feel like he could just strangle a man in a toilet, you know, and he wouldn't do it particularly suavely, but frankly, neither did Daniel Craig at the start. I feel like you can grow into the suaveness.
I'm not sure there's many suave ways of doing that, in fairness.
Well, Roger Moore would disagree. Anyway, let's talk about actual rugby now, because, like, yeah. You know where the podcast is, don't you? You know, there's a Patreon, patreon.com/blood and mud, where you get all the usual Hoojima Watsits and thingamajigs, and you get a full.
Are you not going to sing a song, no?
No. I mean, yeah, no. My voice. I mean, you can tell my voice is right on the verge of going. By the way, listeners, I apologise if I'm very croaky. It's been a very long day. I went down to London for exactly 90 minutes worth of doing a video shoot, and then came back. So
That's
it was
awful.
like, yeah, it's only like, you know, 4 hours travel for 2 hours work. This was, you know, it was on the train. It was fine. It doesn't matter. Also, I got, and you know, Trisha heard this earlier. I
was worried that you were going to tell the story, and I was like, I don't know if I can hear it twice, but go on.
Honestly, it's real bad. We were down doing a video. You know, in my day job, I worked for guitar.com. I was doing a video shoot today with a guy called Christone Kingfish Ingham, who's a very talented guitar player. Who we were doing some stuff, and we had the video shoot. It all went really, really well. Like we chatted a fair bit about wandering around this guitar shop. We got on really, really well. We were saying our goodbyes, and I got it wrong, and I got it quite badly wrong. Because he's sort of like, we were just like shaking hands with everybody who's going out, and as it came to Kingfish, he sort of put his hand up like this, in a sort of like, you know, the Arnie and Predator sort of like hand thing. And for some reason, instead of just like taking his hand and just being like, you know, basically,
I'm in pain here, Josh.
For some reason, I misread that as he was going in for what, you know, Richard Madeley would probably describe as a bro hug.
Oh no!
Where, you know, you're sort of like, but obviously he wasn't doing that because he'd met me an hour previously, and I don't know why I thought this. So I sort of started trying to reciprocate that by kind of going in sort of for the hug. Then I realized I sort of caught myself milliseconds before realizing what I was doing, and so sort of pulled out of it, but my hand was already kind of like over at that point. So I kind of just like sort of tapped him on the shoulder
Oh no!
and then kind of just stepped back, and it was really weird for like a very brief second, and I just sort of given him a weird pat on the back, and then I was just like, "Yeah, to take care, man, safe journey," and just, I mean, it's amazing I'm still here. It's amazing I haven't shriveled myself up into a ball of embarrassment.
Mate.
It's
You've had a long day.
It's been a long day.
The longest bit of the day was that 5 seconds.
It really was. Well, I mean, it wasn't even. It was literally like half a second of just like, did that happen? Yeah, that happened. Let's just. He's probably never going to think about it again. He's probably just going to go, "That was weird," and move on. Whereas
you're going to think about it every day for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, like, well, no, basically like a roughly, sort of 1:15 in the morning every night for the next, 10 years. I'm just going to lie awake and I'm just going to think about that for a minute. And I'm going to cringe a little bit. I'm going to die a little bit inside, and then we're going to move on. So
your young child is never going to wake you up again because you'll already be awake.
I'll already be awake. I'm already just thinking about that time I got it wrong with kingfish. And not in a food sense either. Anyway. But yes, you can indeed, you can follow Lee at Blood and Mud on Twitter. You can follow me at Josh Gardner, all one word. I'm on the old Mastodon, Blue Sky as well. I was on Mastodon. I couldn't deal with it. Just got
I have
confused.
a Blue Sky code, but I haven't done it yet because I don't know, I just forgot.
I
can't do another app. There's too many apps.
This is the thing. I've got it, and I'm just like, it's like Threads. It's like, just because it's there doesn't mean that I thought if it was there I'd use it, but it's like, it really, like, the people aren't
I
there.
can't get Threads because they won't allow it in the EU yet. So
it's fine.
I never got to do the Threads thing. I was just saying
they never will, because literally nobody's on Threads anymore. Everyone's got a Threads account because you can't delete it without deleting your Instagram account now. But literally nobody's posting, and the people who are posting are awful. So don't worry about it. You're missing literally nothing except some of the worst bits of Instagram.
I opened Threads the other day, and the only 2 accounts I follow who've been tweeting have been Limmy and Sleaford Mods. So
there's a weird sort of binariness to that. I enjoy.
I'm the one follower in that Venn diagram.
So yeah, Patricia, Will, how can people get hold of you if they wish to do such a thing?
Patricia, you go first.
We both waited for the other person to talk.
I got in there, told you to go first.
I, like I said, don't have a Blue Sky account because I haven't been asked to set it up yet. I have a Twitter account, _ Patricia V _ I feel like I've been posting more on Instagram about the World Cup than Twitter because it's more fun because I can just do a silly little Instagram story and not have to worry about it. And I think that's, if people want to go look at that, they can. But
not have to worry creating a massive diplomatic incident or something like that. Yeah,
I don't have to worry about 60 replies telling me to kill myself within 5 minutes because I said the wrong thing. So
yeah, I mean, why? To be genuinely, it's amazing that any of us ever were on Twitter and are still on Twitter, because it's such a fun, positive place to be. What about you, Will?
So I often complain on Twitter about the Rugby World Cup and copyright and stuff under at Will _Owen9, and I'm now at the moment putting a lot of Instagram stories of random French towns with captions of like Nottinghamshire based landmarks.
This is one of my favorite bits.
I enjoy this bit a lot. Yeah.
I love the bit. I think it's great.
It usually, like 11 other months of the year, it's random gigs I'm going to, but instead now it's random travels around France. So enjoy that, and then unfollow me as soon as the Rugby World Cup is over.
I mean, that goes without saying for all of us, I would say. Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Grant Swartz says the World Cup bad haircut competition is poorer for not having Elton John. That's very true, actually.
That's fair.
His
anti-Roman and Tamak.
His drug-taking shenanigans have robbed us of him presumably pretending to be injured and getting dropped by now so that they can bring Andre Pollard in. So
I was thinking about the other day the fact that like Razzie got his way in the Handre Pollard and Lucanio Arm are both back in that squad now, and yet he still has 4 scrum halves. Like, I don't think that it really worked the way he wanted it to. Like, he got his results, but like in the wrong way, because now he just has like Jaden Hendricks is sitting there, but also he has no fucking hookers left. So it's just like, what do I do now?
Let's face it, Grant Williams had a holiday booked this week. We all know that, and he's not been able to turn up.
He's like, I'm actually getting married this weekend, and I really thought this wouldn't be a problem. So, yeah. It's also, what has poor Joseph Dwebber done? Like,
he got so psychologically mangled by Munster in the URC final that they just won't let him play anymore. It was when it was the video saying he was going to fuck them up, only for him to get fucked up. I think that they were just like, this guy doesn't have what it takes.
It's just really sad. It's like he should be sitting there thinking, this is my moment. This is my chance. No, for some reason there's an open side flanker as the only other hooker in the squad.
Watching a guy who looks like Martin Clunes, who is not a hooker, playing a hooker in the World Cup, while you are an actual test hooker sitting in South Africa because they just will not answer your phone calls, must be just like incredibly disheartening for the guy. You almost feel sorry for him.
Almost. And then,
he's a South African rugby player. I don't feel sorry for him, but almost.
I mean, also he did make that video, so like
they posted that on their official account, the Stormers, because it was their reaction to not having to play Leinster in the URC final, and then they said like when it aged really badly, they were like, it was leaked. We never intended it to be seen. It's like, you posted it.
That's the thing. It's like, if you're going to go out there as a sort of branded account and do some like shit posting, like own that. Be the shit poster. Like, don't try to be like, oh, I was hacked. Get the fuck out of town.
This is Razzie country. If you're not going to own your shit posting, what are you doing here?
But what is Razzie sort of denying that he made or uploaded that video, if not the ultimate sort of shirking of a shit poster's crown? It's like, he should have just come straight out and been like, yeah, I fucking said it. So what?
He should have said Joseph Dwebber did it.
That's going to be his new video upload alias. It's going to be Joseph Dwebber 99. I don't know when Joseph Dwebber was born. Probably born after.
I feel like 99. It was not 99. I was born in 99. I feel like he's older than me. That guy seems old.
Let's find out. He's 27, 95. Okay, Joseph Dwebber 95. Done. Anyway, yes. So follow us all or don't. Should we do some news?
What's the news? We're doing some really great stalling on the fact that none of us have any news.
I mean, we are in prime, like, quotes masquerading as news territory this week, aren't we?
We were discussing
Jersey Reds don't exist anymore. I guess that's news.
Oh, that's shite.
It is big news and shit news, and just kind of weird news because, like, what, how, why, like, don't they have
English? None of them knew the night before as well, and that they just woke up to the text and saw, oh yeah, your club doesn't exist anymore. Is insane.
Yeah, they got a text at 5 a.m. saying to meet at the club at 7, and when they got there, they were like, "We don't exist anymore. Bye, everyone."
Yeah,
and like brutal.
Don't worry, Bill Sweeney's doing a great job, clearly, and halving the championship's funding before COVID and then halving it again after COVID was a great idea, and it's really, really working.
Like, they won the championship, and then they beat Bath in the Premiership Cup, and from what players and people involved have said, like, they were told after that, like, what a great place Jersey Reds were in and how positive things were, and then like 2 weeks later they don't exist anymore. It's kind of fucking desperate. There's a lot of back and forth going on at the moment about, like, the government said they were going to give us more money. The government are like, we never said we were going to give you any money. The Jersey government, like, not the RFU or anything like that. The states were like, well, we gave you money, 16 years ago. Why do you still have that money? And Jersey Reds are like, we thought we were going to get more money. They separated the sort of underage setup earlier this year.
That is sort of the tiny chink of positivity, I guess, is that there is they have actually, there will still be a Jersey Rugby club.
Yeah, Jersey Rugby still exists. It's just the Reds that don't exist, and Jersey Rugby owned all of the pitches and the I mean, they call it a stadium, but let's be serious, it's not a stadium. But Jersey Rugby owned all of that, so like, it's just like, who's gonna play in the English rugby setup in the next 2 years?
Who? What? I mean, Cardiff and actually, they're always keen.
The Ealing Ospreys.
Yeah, Ealing Ospreys. I mean, we're heading towards a point now where, like, surely it's weird, man, because it's weird. It's only happening to English clubs, because obviously, like, clubs in Wales and elsewhere are also financially fucked in sort of overt.
I feel like the Welsh regions are just like cockroaches, like they just refuse to die.
Certainly, the Ospreys are. No matter how the WIU tries, like, we just keep going, just sort of keep circling that drain without ever going down it. But like, it's weird, man. Like, why? What is it about the English rugby pyramid situation that has allowed so many clubs to sort of go tits up in such
and like
a
there are
small
rumors that, like, heavy rumors that there are 2 more Premiership clubs not far off it, and like, you can't have a league with 8 teams in it.
No, you really.
That's not a league.
That's a pool stage, according to Europe.
Yeah, we are heading towards a situation now where, like, there will be very little choice but to sort of create some sort of British and Irish league situation. Or
I mean, they either go into the URC or, they make like a URC conference, I suppose, for English teams. I really feel for Alex McHenry, who left Munster a couple of years ago to go and play for Wasps, and then left Wasps when they didn't exist, got picked up by Jersey Reds. So he's been at 2 of them now that have gone under, and I just can't imagine. Maybe it is him, like, but I just can't imagine what it must be like to go through that twice.
He's bank robbing clubs. Is clearly what's happening
in the space of like 8 months or whatever. But I mean, like, I feel like we all said when it was, which one was first? Worcester? No, Wasps was first, and then Worcester. Yeah. And then whichever one was first, like, when that one happened, we were all like, they can't let this keep happening.
This can't happen again.
It happened again, and then it was London Irish, and look, we all sort of cared a little bit less, but it's still obviously a problem. And then it was Jersey Reds, and I just think, like, you can't just, like, professional rugby in England kind of can't just die because, like, they literally invented it. So I feel like they should probably stop it from dying.
It remains one of the very biggest markets for the sport in the, like, it's not as big as it probably should be or could be, but, like, it is a fucking huge market for rugby union and a huge sponsorship market for rugby union. And yeah, it's a big old problem if rugby in as much as it's sort of, as much as we don't want to think that it sort of affects everyone else in the Six Nations, it does. Like, if England are in a shit show, then it will affect broadcast deals and it will affect everyone in terms of how these things go. And I just, it's weird, man, for all this to come out, and then there's this new, agreement that they've reached between the RFU and Premiership Rugby on player release that is like going to put, like, the elite player squad on basically they're trying to do what Welsh Rugby Union did a few years ago with the sort of like dual contract thing, where they're like basically topping up contracts for that 45 player squad with like with central funding money, which is
it's something Ireland are very good at. But the difference is that Ireland have 13 central contracts and not like 800 or however many Wales are trying to have. They're very good at time off and stuff like that. Like, Ireland players do get proper rests, but like after tournaments, as opposed to you are playing this weekend, and like, I can tell you as someone who supports an Irish province, it sometimes is really fucking frustrating. So, like, I know for a fact that most of these players were just in the squad, they didn't even get any minutes. Why do they need 3 weeks off the same as everyone else? But like, Ireland are very good at like treating their players. I feel like Ireland treat their players relatively better than a lot of the other countries do. They have it figured out a bit more. But
I mean, they're at least, yeah. But like, yeah, there's definitely I think your point about how many central contracts there are in Ireland versus how many Wales tried to do is very salient because, like, yeah, Wales tried to do a full 38-man squad's worth of
that's too many
dual contracts, and that is a big part of why Welsh rugby unions basically nearly went fucking bankrupt.
Yeah,
like,
they have 500 quid in the national budget, like.
Yeah, and why everything.
And I know that you have more money and they own all of the provinces, so that makes a difference as well.
They still spend it much more wisely, though, is the thing.
Yeah, and I do just think it's like it's
there's no Aviva Stadium hotel, put it that way.
No, and it feels like
and nor will there be one.
No, but it feels like a huge roll of the dice for the RFU to try and sort of make England not a joke. And the sort of the worry is, that they'll get it right and it'll work. And none of us want to see that, do we? Really? Let's be honest.
No.
But it is, in all seriousness, like it does. You do wonder how it's going to work, because a big part of the Premiership sort of supposed appeal has been like, no, our players actually turn up every week, and they're not like the Irish players who only turn up for the Heineken Cup and a couple of games every season. Like,
well,
our England players play every week, and it's like, well, how does the Premiership, like, if that's the sort of key plank of the Premiership's marketing is that it has all these fucking big stars? What happens
when 6 clubs that don't have England players now don't exist?
Yeah, and what happens when Owen Farrell plays like 7 times a season for Saracens, or Maro Itoje plays 7 times a season, and most of those games are in Europe. Like, I just like they obviously have to try something, but like
it seems like a weird time to try this specifically. Like maybe stop all of your clubs disappearing before you sort of start messing around with player contracts and stuff.
England, the RFU are already forecasting that they're going to have £100 million fucking hole in their finances within a couple of years, at current projections. I don't see how, like, paying the clubs even more money to release players and getting players on sort of hybrid sort of dual contracts is going to make that figure go down. I don't know.
The best way to make money is to spend loads more money.
I mean, that was certainly what the RFU tried after 2015, where they had that massive £200 million surplus after it, and then somehow that all evaporated within about 18 months. And I'm still not entirely sure what happened to that.
Don't worry about it.
I think that, it's like Mark Dodson and the sort of Scotland COVID cash. It's like, just don't ask me about it. Don't make me talk about it. Let's all just forget about it and move on.
I have another piece of news.
Hit me.
In a sort of what I can only assume is like an experiment into what would a crowdless rugby game be like not in COVID times. Leinster are playing Saracens in a sort of one-off game there early next year. They wanted to do like a clash of the champions, but Munster and the Crusaders are playing in February, and that's what that game is being called because they both won their leagues. So, they're doing a clash of the champions where only one of the teams has actually won anything in the last few years. But that, if 20 people go to that, like they'll have gotten a good turnout, because I don't know if there's 2 clubs with sort of worse fan bases.
I will not stand for this Irish Shield erasure. I'm sorry. It is a real.
But can you call yourself a champion if you've won the Irish Shield? Because
I mean, I feel like the Ospreys would try, and I'm surprised that the Blues haven't.
I feel like the Welsh Shield is different, though.
Well, that's because
because none of them are going to win anything else. Like,
Leinster's squad is worth like €800 million. Like, they should be winning something else probably.
Like, could you imagine if the Dragons won the Welsh Shield? They would never stop mentioning that.
They
That would
have
be the Flethley beating the All Blacks of the Dragons history.
It would be an open top parade through Newport thing.
Yeah.
And
Like, I reckon Johnny Sexton gets paid more in a year than 2 of the Welsh region's budgets.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, I've seen how. Have you looked at the Dragons squad recently? Have you looked at any of the Wales team squads recently? Actually,
I can't
real
lie.
depressing.
No, I
No,
haven't.
you shouldn't. If you don't want to be depressed, don't look at it. Even from an external point, you just go, "Oh my god, really?" But yeah, it's an interesting. What is with these? Well, I know that like the English clubs are desperate to fill their calendar with meaningful matches because
What I don't understand about it is, like, with Munster playing the Crusaders, and it was the same as when they played South Africa last year, and it was like they're playing the Crusaders in Páirc Uí Chaoimh again, and it was like it's a big deal because they aren't two teams that like have ever played each other, and there's always been this thing that the Crusaders have spoken about wanting to play Munster, and there's never been a sort of Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere club game like this. But like Leinster and Saracens have played each other in European finals, and like they may well do so like 2 months after that game. So I don't really understand where what the
This
incentive
isn't a meaningful
is.
fixture.
No, where's the incentive for this as a game to exist? And it's like in the Six Nations or something. Like
it's not even like playing a touring side or playing the Barbarians or something. It's literally just arranging.
Like, can you imagine the state of the Leinster team that they're going to send over in a Six Nations window friendly against Saracens? It's going to be like pathetic.
Like who won the pointless one-off Taskmaster Champion of Champions? I can't remember who won that.
Yeah,
I remember who won the series.
I know who won the first. I know who won the first one, but I actually don't think I watched the second one. That's how pointless it is.
And rightly so, because it is, the whole point of what Taskmaster.
It's not even Champion of Champions. It's like the New Year's Day ones that they do, where they have like Ryland come on and do it because they can't get them to do a full series. Like Amelia de Moldenberg coming on and doing Taskmaster for one day. Like that's the equivalent of these games. Leinster versus Saracens, like that's just a normal game that could happen literally every year.
Yeah,
and does.
And neither of them going to feel
probably will.
Team.
No, that's the thing. It will be Leinster's thirds versus Saracens seconds in front of however many people they normally get.
In front of Hal Cruttenden, and the columnists from the Irish Independent.
Leinster will win it because it doesn't matter whether they field their first, second, or third team because they play equally as well.
Yeah. That's the other. I've no doubt that like everyone who's actually there for that game, which is going to be exclusively the 11 Saracens fans, are going to have a shit time and go home annoyed because Leinster will inevitably win that game. Leinster will not care about it because why are Leinster like why have Leinster's like why are Leinster gone to this? How much is Saracens paying them to turn up?
That's where England's €200 million went after 2015. Look, one day we're going to need to pay Leinster, okay?
To come over for one day and one day only. It's gonna be just it's not like Bristol playing the Barbarians or something like that.
But that's it. Like Munster did a double header against the Barbarians and at the weekend, and they played South Africa. Obviously, like those games mean something because they're not normal games that you could literally just watch in an actual meaningful competition 2 months later.
Let's put it this way: when that game happens on that weekend, you and Leon not going to talk about it in the weekend section.
Absolutely fucking not. I'm not even going to acknowledge its existence unless something really funny happens.
Yeah.
And it would have to be like, multiple dogs on the pitch. Yeah. Donkey on the pitch, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Look, I have donkeys. I can make there be donkeys on the pitch if we need donkeys on the pitch.
Please make donkeys on the pitch happen. Like just one time. So we can finish this podcast then. It'll be like tick done. We don't need to do anything else now.
When I get back to Ireland, I'll assess and I'll see what I can do.
just sort of gauge how they'd go on the ferry, and then we can take it from there. But maybe Saracens could sort of roll it back and sort of have Camel on the pitch.
Oh my god!
Remember when they had their camel mascot?
Sarri the camel.
Harry the Camel that they really don't like to
Traumatising,
talk
Josh.
about anymore because it makes the whole thing seem a lot more racist. Yeah, bring that guy back. You know,
Do you remember their shit theme tune as well? Here we go, Saracens. Here we go.
No, I don't.
Saracens are gonna
I
be the
remember stand up.
champions.
Oh my god, that's somehow worse than stand up for Saracens, which as
Yeah,
we
it
all
was.
know,
It was. It was dreadful.
it's
And
a real
they
nadir.
have to stand up for the Saracens as well. So
Wow.
like they downgraded somehow. I don't know if it was maybe one of those things just to like some kind of litmus test to make you feel better about stand up for the Saracens. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, it could get a lot worse, despite what you're
If
saying.
we keep playing this at them, eventually they'll ask for stand up for Saracens back. Just
Please,
through sheer.
please, no more song discourse. I can't do any more song discourse.
Every time Charlie Hodgson kicked a ball through the post and stand up for the Saracens started playing, you could just see the look on his face like, I wish I fucking missed that kick. If only someone reminded me.
If only people would sit down for Saracens, then I would be freed from this curse.
Who were they telling to stand up? There was nobody there.
I was going to say, passing by, people, dog walkers, random passers by. I mean, that stadium is basically next to a leisure centre, right? So, guys doing aqua aerobics, maybe.
It's really disappointing lack of shit stadiums at this World Cup. Like every stadium I've been to has just been really good. And like I wanted one of these to be like a shithole.
Yeah.
Bordeaux is a shithole, even though the stadium's quite nice.
Yeah, I didn't like Bordeaux either, but the stadium is cool.
I think France have sort of done what Germany did in the 2006 Football World Cup when they went sort of like, doesn't really matter how bad a team you are, if you're a host, you're going to have a good stadium. And so every football stadium in Germany, certainly in the top division, is extremely nice because they all got a lovely lick of paint and a do-over for the 2000. And I just feel like, was it the Euros that they hosted a couple of years ago? I feel like combination of like general quality of rugby in France in general and the fact that like they've hosted Football World Cups and European Championships quite recently. Oh, it's 2016, of course, the Euros that they hosted. I feel like all of their stadiums got a fairly recent lick of paint and a sort of modernisation.
Let's just say, again, I don't want to start an incident, but had Ireland won the bid to host this World Cup, that would not have been the case.
I mean, I've seen...
Everybody's seen the photo of Casey.
We've all seen the photo. I mean, you're wading into some serious,
Casement Park looks worse than that now.
I mean, well, obviously, nothing's been done with it. If that's because they didn't win the Rugby World Cup,
Scotland have to live with the sort of moral implications of what they did when they didn't vote for Ireland to host this World Cup. In the fact that there are now mushrooms growing on the pitch at Casement Park instead of sport happening there. So, if they can live with that, then best of good luck to them.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember, was it the LCGAA or somebody who said basically, like, oh, yeah, redeveloping Casement Park is a massive priority for us, like, a year or two ago. And it was like, come on, man. It
was a huge thing in Ireland's bid for this World Cup that was like, they had mock-ups of what it was going to look like. Oh, it was going to be amazing. No. And also, you wouldn't have been able to get there anyway.
Well, this is the thing. It's like, and also, that's one stadium. Have you seen how many stadiums are at this World Cup? Fucking shitloads.
Yeah, I've been in most of them at this point.
Yeah, you have. And there is a reason why, most of the time when nations in Europe have had to host a World Cup, they've basically had to go, can we also borrow the Millennium Stadium and maybe also Murrayfield? Because there just aren't that many suitable stadia that aren't being used for football in November in the Northern Hemisphere. So
I mean, there was all talk that they would have had to only schedule games in Connacht when there wasn't dog racing happening, and it would have been a really interesting World Cup had it been in Ireland, I think. I almost kind of wish that we had a way of sort of seeing that version of the World Cup. I mean, we can't even see this version of the World Cup, but if we had a way of seeing that one, I think it would have been really interesting.
Imagine if we could have seen this World Cup instead of just reading about it. Yeah.
I paid a lot of money to be here, and I can't even watch bits of games after I've been to them.
It's really just like it's such a weird World Cup. Like I think it's primarily watching from a sort of viewer perspective. It's weird because of how little momentum the tournament has had, and there's something that they really need to worry about going forward. I think is like how you maintain, how you actually allow people to have a decent amount of time off, while also like not making it feel massively like stop start because like
like obviously not having the like 8-hour turnarounds between games for tier 2 nations is a good thing, and I think we would all rather it be that way. But also it's really like the I feel like the first weekend was the worst, where you had that really good opening weekend and then all of a sudden there was no rugby for like 5 days. You couldn't watch a single clip of anything. So it just feels like there's no World Cup.
No one is talking about the World Cup unless a game is physically like on in front of them, in which case they probably can't watch it. You know, like it's impossible for as you say, for the tournament to get any sort of momentum. I do wonder if adding an extra 4 teams might help that out. I'm not really sure what the proposal is in terms of pools and how many fixtures everyone's playing, but
and obviously like there is a problem that teams probably play too many games now. So like you have to like figure out how it would work. But maybe like they've really just fucked it. To be fair, like there's actually no other way of sort of talking around it other than they have actually just fucked it.
Yeah, and I mean it could be worse, because have you seen what they're going to do with the FIFA World Cup in 2030? Because that's now won the award for silliest international tournament. Because
this isn't the one that they're doing in Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Wales, and Scotland, is it?
No, the 2030 World Cup is going to be played on 3 different continents,
right?
Which is it's going to be played in Morocco, Portugal, and Spain to actually host it. However, the first 3 matches are going to be held in Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina.
Why?
I mean,
just because
bribes, massive bribes.
No vibes, just bribes.
No vibes, just fucking bribes. I mean, that's the World Cup we would have got if certain people hadn't had to step down ahead of the World Cup for this sort of thing. We would. He
would have made sure that we could have seen it.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, he was unable to bung the right people, and this is the situation that we've ended ourselves up in. Money does make the world go round, and to be fair to Bill Laporte, he did understand that. Just a little bit too well. Any more news? Oh, Marika Koribeti's probably retired.
God, he deserves a better rap, doesn't he?
Doesn't he? Like, literally.
Also, his retirement just got outed.
Somebody else just said, oh, by the way, he's retired 2 days after he played his final game. Like,
we're really good mates, and he told me in confidence before this tournament that he was going to retire afterwards, and I'm telling you, press room, like it was.
It was
like,
really
such a shame that he's played his final game. Sorry, he's played his what?
Oh shit! I said I done a boo boo.
His final game of 2023.
It's like, well, I'm not sure to get the quarterfinal. What then?
Oh my god! But like he's only 31, Koribeti. Like it feels very early, but also it feels like he wants to go and make an awful lot of money in Japan, and you can blame him.
Good on him.
Yeah,
like
there are players there are always players that like deserve going to make loads of money in Japan to play like 2 games a year and just have the easiest life possible.
Yeah,
I feel like Marika Koribeti is definitely one of them.
I had it like a couple of years ago where I had one of those occasional things, I say occasional weekly things, where I realise how much I miss Hadley Parks, and I just go and watch a random highlights clip of the Wild Knights playing. And there was one like hilarious one where I just saw this box kick go in, and like the winger fumbles it, and then tackling completely optional in Japan, and then the opposition winger then picks it up and then starts sprinting around someone. He's Marika Koribeti. He's like the fastest winger in the world, and it's always a really good punchline when you're watching top league highlights. I highly recommend it.
I mean, that sounds exactly like extremely unserious rugby is what I'm here for. So yeah.
And Corin Bete is like one of the best wingers of the last 10 years. Like he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and sort of one of those guys that kind of came out of nowhere a little bit.
Mm.
Obviously, he was in the NRL a bit beforehand, and then was instantly like one of the best wingers in the world, and then remained that way. And now he's like, okay, see you later, then, guys. And it's like, oh
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the players that break through sort of now, sort of don't break through. Like they break through for like 2 years and then they sort of fizzle out. Like, but I feel like he is one of those players who broke through around that time, who had that like sustained career and has never not been one of the best wingers in the world. Like, I don't know what, who has broken through in the last couple of years you could look at and say like he will have that sort of career.
Yeah.
No, indeed, and he hasn't sort of. He's even when he's sort of been playing in Japan or whatever. It's like hits all. He's still kind of very much.
And I think you see it more when they play in a sort of shit team as well. Like he's been playing for Australia this whole time, and he's still been that good. Like he's played for Michael Cheika Australia, Dave Rennie Australia, Eddie Jones Australia, and he's never not been great.
I believe there was a thing that went around where he was going to miss this World Cup for family reasons, wasn't he? Like a year ago. So I assume that that's a part of what's gone on here. But I'm glad he made it to this World Cup. But God, it's not what he deserved.
No. Going out with a literally zero fanfare.
Yeah.
At the end of a game where you beat Portugal, but everyone's really cross about it.
The actual opposite
of
no, he scored against Portugal.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. I already forgot about that.
It was like the opposite of fanfare because, like, shout out to whoever was working the sort of big screens and cameras in Saint Etienne on Sunday, because they showed Eddie Jones so often because they knew that whenever they showed him, they would get stadium-wide boos. And it's and like I don't like, I wouldn't be sort of like, booing Eddie Jones is not my prerogative, right? I don't really give a shit enough about Eddie Jones to boo him, but it's so much fun to boo Eddie Jones in a stadium full of people booing Eddie Jones.
I love Eddie Jones. I'm
actually quite a fan of Eddie Jones.
I've always been a fan of Eddie Jones. I think he's an incredible coach. Like he's one of my coaching idols, and I think he's brilliant. Right, as much as I think he's also doing a shite job with this Australian team at the moment. I think I must also say that. But I have loved booing Eddie Jones. I think it's hilarious because he clearly loves it. He loves being the pantomime villain.
Oh, 100%. He is that guy who just laps it up.
Yeah.
And is happy to be the bad guy because that's kind of like it's his fucking shtick, man. He is the bad guy.
Duh.
Yeah. Okay. There's no more news. We've been at this for like an hour and 7 minutes now.
Gonna be a long one this week, guys.
Well, you say that, but how many meaningful matches are there to really talk about?
Can we talk about whatever the fuck happened to Italy, or who played that game instead of Italy? Because that's what actually has been confusing me since whenever that game was.
Before we do that, we're going to say goodbye to our...
Oh, yeah, sorry. You guys don't get to find out who played
Italy.
Yeah,
you guys don't get to find out who... Yeah, exactly. Well, that will all be revealed.
It's good clickbait.
In the Patreon bit. And if you're not in that, sorry, we'll see you later. Bye. Right.
Did the entirety of Italy get Freaky Friday with Kingsley Jones' Canada? Yes or no?
I mean, it felt like a lot of factors came together to like make this a very, very bad day for Italy. Not least, I feel like somehow Ian Foster has kind of like managed to turn on the like All Blacks feeling slighted and having a bit of a chip on their shoulder thing, which, even though this is an extremely unremarkable All Blacks team, and might be the worst All Blacks team in 20 years, like, if you can generate enough sort of like piss boiling amongst that squad, they're still very, very good. And still, there's a lot of spite. Like, if you can get them fueled by spite, they can still do a lot of damage in this World Cup. And I feel like people going, this is Italy's best ever chance to beat them, was exactly the level of sort of like,
I think this was our fault.
Yeah, we were all like, "What if Italy just beat the All Blacks?" Though none of us really expected it, but
horror movies are one of my favorite things in the world, and this game was like watching a horror movie. I do not mean that as a compliment. It was genuinely just an awful time. And New Zealand kept scoring. It just didn't stop scoring. And I think at one point I said they were on like 65 points or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but they won't get to 100. And then but I hadn't even
I did the same thing.
I hadn't even sent the message and they were on like 89. I was like, what the fuck? What if they do get to 100?
Yeah, they sort of, around 60 minutes, they really picked the pace up and were like, we're really going to make this fucking soul destroying for everyone involved here.
It's horrible. That was the first time this World Cup. So I flew back to the UK the night before that. And that was the first one where I was like, you know what? I've not done it in a while. I'm just going to go and watch this in a pub with friends, right? And there was one guy there who I didn't know particularly well, who doesn't watch a lot of rugby, who was like, oh, this is definitely going to 100, like at halftime. I was like, no, I think Italy will slow it down. I think they'll calm it down. I think they'll frustrate them a little bit. And the All Blacks will drop a few balls. And it'll end up at like 70, you know? And then, yeah, as you say, next thing you know, they're just rolling in. It's like, I told you. And I was like, I know, but I hate this.
I said on our podcast that I don't think teams are capable of scoring 100 points in games anymore. I said I think the gap is closed just enough that what would have sort of 20 years ago been 100 or 110 points is now sort of like 80 or 85. Yeah. And since I said that, France and New Zealand have both scored 96 points. And I'm like, fuck. Like,
yeah. And Italy aren't even one of those teams that you think that could possibly happen.
Exactly. It was because it was against Italy. I was like,
this is such a good Italy team, or it should be such a good Italy team. They played like utter dog shit in that game. They were so really bad. Like the All Blacks obviously were very good, but they didn't have to be. Like the Ardi Savir try in the first half, where he just like literally ran through. I think it was Stephen Varney who just basically looked like he couldn't be asked to be in this World Cup. And it was just awful to watch. It was just so
Stephen Varney had that sort of game where you're like, he is definitely thinking to himself, like he's looking to see like, have his shorts fallen down or like, are his legs replaced with like chicken legs or something? Like he's having like that level of nightmare performance. He's expecting to look at his hands and just see like 2 lamb chops or something instead, because he's like, this cannot be real life. Something really, really strange has to be going on here.
Well, it was almost like because like Italy were genuinely appalling at sort of defending off first phase to a level where like it was so much worse than any other team I'd seen. Like, and the one thing that you do not want to do to a Joe Schmidt team, which, let's be real, this is a fucking Joe Schmidt team.
Yes.
Like, the one time that a Joe Schmidt team ever looks dangerous is attacking off first phase from a set piece. Yeah. And Italy gave them so many chances to do that. And every time it was just like, well, this is a try then, because you cannot stop any kind of strike move today. And it was a perfect storm of shit. It was like, if Italy had like been playing, if they'd been playing France, or if they'd been playing South Africa, or a team that isn't quite as sort of like, it probably would still have been 70 or 80, but it wouldn't have been that bad. But because it was literally just like, all of your set moves are going to work and be a try, exactly as they would be on the training pitch today. And it's like you said, they didn't have to try that hard.
No.
To be honest, this was the first game in this World Cup that I genuinely nearly turned off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about it.
At least France and Namibia was entertaining, and the tries France were scoring and stuff. But that was just really horrible to watch.
It was awful, and it was confusing, and it just I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know why I was watching it. It was just
confused and angry, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
Like France first team running in, 14 tries, whatever, against Namibia's second team. You can at least go, oh yeah, well Namibia obviously are outclassed here. Whereas,
and you had the narrative of thinking about Dupont's face and at least France and Namibia had some substance to it. Whereas this was like, we all know that Italy are not a team who should be shipping 100 points, and it was awful. Just so strange.
And it just felt bad. Like, it felt unpleasant. Like
there have been pastings at this World Cup, like there will be at any tournament, that have still been even broadly entertaining to watch. Like, I had quite a fun time watching the Scotland game against Romania, and that was a pasting. But it's like, that one was just an absolute horror show. It was really just bad time. It was awful.
Yeah.
Like, I am happy that World Rugby are not letting anybody watch this.
Yeah, that one I don't ever need to see again. and it just felt like almost New Zealand like taking it out on Italy for the fact that they're probably going to get knocked out in the quarterfinal. You know,
it's not Italy's fault that people think they can't beat Ireland. Like Paolo Garbisi did not do this to you.
Yeah, it's misdirected anger on a sort of test rugby scale.
But also all the like newspaper columns being like, "Ooh, New Zealand have arrived. Ireland need to worry about the quarterfinals again." Like, guys, come on. Let's be a little bit serious for 0.1 seconds.
Well, it is like you look at that New Zealand team and you go, oh, maybe they like with enough piss and fucking.
I don't doubt that New Zealand could beat Ireland in a quarterfinal. Like, I think that that Italy performance could probably beat Ireland in the quarterfinal. But like, just because they scored 96 points against one of the most heinous performances anyone has ever seen doesn't mean they're all of a sudden 2011 All Blacks again.
Absolutely no, and it doesn't benefit anybody except maybe Ireland to be sort of like saying this stuff about the All Blacks all the time. You know, it's like as soon as they put in one good performance, it's like, oh, the All Blacks are back. No, they're fucking not. Like
we'll find out if they're back in a week.
Well, and to be honest with you, even if they are, like, even if they somehow fucking win this World Cup, I have no like belief that this is like the start of a new golden era of fucking All Blacks rugby. No. Like the future.
But it's like England or Wales might win this World Cup. It doesn't make them like fundamentally quite bad. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Wales could win this World Cup and then go bankrupt the next week. So could England.
That would
like,
be hilarious.
It is.
That would be so Welsh rugby. It would actually be the final boss of Welsh rugby.
It actually would. And I'd be all right with it.
Let's talk about going out on a high, though. Stop the count.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. There's never getting better than that.
In reality, they're going to go out like losing the bronze final by like 100 points and then still going bankrupt the next week.
Nobody fit left. Yeah. And all of the most important players in Welsh rugby are then out for the rest of the season. But, you know.
It's okay because one of them will win the Welsh Shield.
Yeah. And it'll be Newport and they'll have a parade. Good for them. It just felt so mean on the All Blacks part. Like, not miss a single ticket goal either. Just like, can you just not? Can you just be less fucking horrible about this for 5 minutes?
Can we stop talking about the All Blacks, please? I'm just depressed by that game.
It's not very rugby values of you to say that.
Yeah, but you know what? Fuck it.
The All Blacks are the most rugby values team in the history of rugby.
It's true, but
it's true.
What about Portugal?
Well,
Portugal are more than rugby values.
They value rugby, which is more. To be honest with you, this is another game that made me quite cross.
Australia, Portugal.
Because it was just like Australia was still fucking shit. It was.
I was in a bad mood leaving that stadium.
Oh, I bet you were.
It was my dad's birthday, and we drove 5 hours to go see Portugal, and that was what we got. And
that is the thing that is just extremely frustrating. Because
Portugal bottled it. There's no point pretending that they didn't.
That's
because when you can see a team, when you're in the stadium and you can see so clearly a 4-on-1 overlap, and that team doesn't score that try, Portugal had
inside the 22 as well.
Yeah, if Portugal kept 15 players on the pitch for that whole match, I think it's a very different game because they basically just lost that game within the 10 minutes that they were down a player. I think that kind of like the Wales-Fiji game, there was a lot of like ref chat and stuff like that. And I don't think that I think Portugal lost that game for Portugal.
Definitely.
But it's I think it's a difficult one because I don't think that the refereeing isn't a factor. I just don't think it's the factor. I don't think it's the thing that people should be focusing on because I don't even think it is the refereeing. I feel like the refereeing is a symptom of like the bunker and like shitting out of giving red cards. And then that is a symptom of the way that World Rugby treat teams that are not, the 10 teams that they give a shit about. And like, that's what people should be talking about if they want to talk about something that isn't the game. But it's obviously just easy to go like, the ref fucked it. Like,
Portugal should have won that. Like they should, or they
Portugal
should have
had enough to score more tries. But it, I don't know.
It's so frustrating because
there is
Portugal...
definitely a conversation, like a sort of a valid and meaningful one about how tier 2 and 3 teams are treated in relation to tier 1 nations. But I don't think it's necessarily just about how they're refereed. I don't think that conversation needs to be about how they're refereed. I think it's just about how they're treated, and I think that maybe filters down. It's just it is frustrating, and like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm like fucking holier than thou and I wasn't sat in that stadium like cursing Nika Amchikeli and, you know, the day he was born. Because like you do when you're at games, of course you do. And like for me, it was more about like high shots and things like that, because then at this point you're like, you know, what's the deal? What are we actually doing player safety wise here?
Sure.
What sort of...
It's a different conversation.
You know? Yeah, that's what bothers me.
Oh, this breakdown was a penalty.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about the breakdown. I give a shit about Sami Karevi punching players in the face and being allowed to come back on. That's what's more frustrating in the moment. But like, I do have to say though, the first like 8 minutes of that game, it is probably one of the most special moments of my life. When Portugal went over for that try, it was really, really special, because there were like 3.5 Australia supporters at this game. The stadium was so Portuguese. It was like being at a fucking family reunion.
Appleton's like, it was as well.
I love Thomas Appleton in such a real way. Like,
I would marry him.
Make him president of Portugal. Like, I don't know. Like, make him everybody's dentist. Yes,
Appleton as Bond. We have it. Like, look, Patricia.
He has that sort of like floppy head, slightly sort of like, I'm a bit of a...
He's so handsome.
He's unbelievably handsome. Like, what you were saying earlier about, like, sometimes you can't help but just acknowledge that the players are hot. Like, Thomas Appleton, good God.
He's just a beautiful guy.
He is the most handsome man in this Rugby World Cup by such a distance. It's not close remotely.
But that was very special watching them score a try, because of the, you know, they haven't
touched like that, by the way. God damn.
Because like they haven't been here since 2007 and they had never scored, you know, more than one try in a World Cup game. They did that last week against Georgia, and it's frustrating in a way that Portugal have shown up to this tournament so well, but in a way like they've almost done themselves a disservice, because, you know, in all 3 of their games, like you're looking at, if they had like the tiny, and that's what I think of, it's about like the way that they're treated as opposed to the players and the referees. Like if they had that tiny bit more experience and that tiny bit more exposure, they weren't a million miles away from winning any of those 3 games.
Not at all. Like, here's the thing. Portugal in that game against Australia, they played up to the same standard that Australia play at. They just didn't play at that standard very well. Like which sounds like in itself contradictory. But I would say, like, by Portugal standards, like, I think you give that game maybe like a 7 out of 10. And the Wales game, like, in retrospect, at the time I probably said was a 6.5, but it was probably a 5, you know. But they showed that they can compete with Australia, but they blew so many chances. And the thing you were saying just there, Patricia, about that, them needing that exposure to playing that was just so evident, because they completely shat the bed at 14 men, you know? Like the rest of the game, Portugal, they were okay. But at 14 men, they really shat the bed. They had no idea how to compete with a team who plays as quickly as Australia at that tempo for 10 minutes.
Before this tournament, they hadn't played a team ranked in the top 10 of the world rankings for over a decade. And it's like, what frustrates me most is that why would World Rugby and like rugby, I suppose in general, not want to make it so that like every team in this tournament is that competitive? Because you look at teams like Chile and Uruguay and Portugal, and the way that they sort of, the accounts that they make of themselves with the opportunities and the resources that they have. Like, imagine if they had more.
L'opportunité, say fucking a norm.
It could be, but they just won't let it be. And it's like, if, you know, we could have a Pool C this weekend where, you know, 3 of the teams where you have like Fiji, Portugal could be like deciding a place in the quarterfinals, because Portugal were so close to winning, you know, at like 2 of the games. And it's really frustrating to watch the games and know that, and like you want to be sort of happy that Portugal are there, and it is like, it's special, and
You don't want to patronise them, do they? Because they're a better team than that.
But you know that
yeah.
it's knowing that it can be more, and like
Yeah.
having to be happy for what it is. And like I am obviously so, like I said, it was really special to watch them score that try and go ahead, and it's so great to have them at the World Cup. And I think that they will, you know, they won't have to qualify. They'll have to qualify, but they won't have to do the qualifying tournament thing to go for the next one, I don't think, because they are a better team than Romania.
Definitely.
They are probably a better team than Spain, and like. But it's just knowing that, like, if World Rugby would get out of their way, how much better these teams could be, and the players that deserve it. Like the average age of their squad is like 8.5 or something. Like they are so young, and it like their squad are not even fully professional. And just to think like what teams
they have one of the
Portugal
best backlines in this World Cup.
100%, and they're like arguably they have been the most entertaining team to watch in this tournament.
Yeah,
and like if they were just allowed, and like they're doing everything that they can, if they were just allowed to, to be what they have the potential to be. And that's what's really frustrating, knowing that they're not. Like these teams are sort of being blocked from being as good as they have shown that they could be.
Yeah.
And that is frustrating. And it was kind of a shit game to watch at the stadium, like, because, Portugal scored and I was like, yeah, let's go. And then they got the yellow card and Australia scored 3 tries and we were like, well, this is done now. So what are we going to do now for the next hour and a half?
Yeah, I found myself very annoyed in this game. I'm very frustrated with the ref, and I was very frustrated with a lot. But I think on reflection, I was frustrated with the ref because I was mainly frustrated with Portugal because it was fucking right there. If Portugal had played with like 10% more composure, that game was there to fucking win. And instead,
and I think that they deserve that frustration, but I do think that World Rugby deserve it as well. Like like you say, you don't want to patronize them because they are good enough to win these games, and they have been good enough to win these games, and they deserve to, have people be pissed off that they haven't won these games. Like I was in such a bad mood when they drew against Georgia last week, because I was like, you could have just fucking won that game.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like they are sort of, there's that like lower, because they're not a tier 2 nation because like they don't have the votes or whatever. So like there are that sort of level of teams in this tournament that are being made to play with one hand behind their backs.
Yeah.
And like there's nothing that they can do about that, as good as they clearly can be. And Portugal and Uruguay have shown that they are good enough to win games that they haven't then gone on to win.
Aren't they?
Yeah, and like it's like, oh, they're so far behind. But if you don't give them a chance to catch up, then they're never going to not be that far behind. Like, it's really frustrating at times.
Yeah, and I think it is the sort of, it's the nettle that World Rugby is desperately trying to avoid grasping, but it's increasingly apparent that they cannot ignore it for another World Cup cycle. Like, the plan that they have with the fucking World League or whatever the hell it's going to be called, like, it's not. It's completely unsatisfactory on evidence of this World Cup.
And it even just bothers you from a point of view of like, from a business point of view, it just seems like they would have such a better product in terms of the World Cup if they would give the teams, like as many teams as possible, the opportunity to be as competitive as possible. Yeah. Because imagine a World Cup where like Portugal turned over Wales just after Wales had beaten Fiji, or like Uruguay did beat France, and like, or Chile managed to get over the line against Japan, and it's like we would have a more interesting final round of pool stages now, and it's really frustrating that we're not allowed to see that. They're not allowed to sort of recognize that. They're not allowed to win those games and have those moments because, I don't know, like Bill Beaumont doesn't want them to. Like, rugby fundamentally makes no fucking sense, and it's just really frustrating sometimes.
Well, there's more people in Portugal than there are in Ireland, There's more people in Portugal than there are in Wales or in Scotland. Like, obviously it's a very minority sport there, but like, imagine if Portugal suddenly had the opportunity to become as good as they have the potential to be.
Yeah.
And Portugal which is obviously always going to be a football nation. But if fucking
If you do
rugby
a Uruguay and get to second place,
yeah, exactly.
It's the argument of like, oh, it's a minority sport. But if they played more games against like proper teams, instead of if they played teams that weren't Georgia, because like that's not to be disrespectful to Georgia, they play Georgia all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But, like if they were, if
it's
they
not
played
engaging,
like, I had someone like tag me on Twitter after the game and say like, oh, emerging Ireland should go and play Portugal. But it's like, why?
Well, fucking Ireland should go and play Portugal.
Yeah.
Portugal, like Georgia play, against Ireland and England and Wales in November games all the time. Georgia just drew with Portugal in the fucking World Cup. Why are we saying that they should be playing A teams or like made up teams?
And they were lucky to draw that game, man. Like
Georgia had to come back to get a draw.
Yeah.
And it was
it really winds me up.
And it should, if not for that penalty going the wrong side of the post, it would have been a fucking loss.
Yeah. If they still had someone marked on the field, they'd have won that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Georgia still had the we've seen, and I'm not touch wood, it won't happen, but we've seen that when Georgia plays proper fucking actual teams and not like the dregs and binge use of an autumn international schedule, there's still quite a big gap between like an Australia and them, and so. I don't know why.
It just really bothers me that like World Rugby's thing is always, there is such a big gap. They're doing nothing to even attempt to start closing the gap, and like you can't just say there's a gap. So do something about it, for fuck's sake.
And it's such a sort of self-defeating thing as well, because it's like I understand why the tier 1 nations, and particularly the European ones, feel like they need to be maximizing their revenue through playing as many games as possible against profitable teams, and a huge amount of revenue comes from those incoming and outgoing tours in July and November and all of that stuff. However, like if we were thinking long term about this shit, then we would be going, well, at least 2 games a year in a, however many test schedule that you have outside of the Rugby Championship or Six Nations or whatever should be against tier 2 opposition. Like, how much extra money, if you play a 3-test series you go and play a 3-test series against the All Blacks or a 3-test series against the Springboks or whatever, like, how much money are you really making versus a 2-test series against the All Blacks and 1 test against Samoa or Chile, or you go and play Argentina, you go and play fucking Chile or Uruguay on the way. Like
any time that any of these teams have been like given a fraction of an opportunity or like the corner of the stage, they have shown what they can do. And like Ireland, who are the favourites to arguably the favourites to win this tournament, won't tell anyone what happened in their training game against Portugal, because apparently like they got a bit embarrassed. And so let these teams show you what they can do, give them the opportunity to do it, and you will have a better sport and better games as a result. And it's really frustrating to see players who are clearly incredible players be sort of wasted by that through sort of no fault of their own. It's kind of sad in a way.
Alienated by their own country's rugby history rather than where they are as a group,
Yeah.
Anyway, we can talk about this all night, and I think we all agree with each other. It's a sad. Like, I really hope that while I'm kind of sorry, Patricia, I am kind of rooting for Fiji to get the point they need.
Look, like at this point, you kind of have to root for Fiji. I let them get a losing bonus point, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I would be perfectly fine with Fiji.
4 tries in defeat.
Yeah.
And that's fine with me. But like, I hope Portugal, and I feel like they will. I really want Portugal to go out and give fucking a good account of themselves in this final game and make people remember that they are probably the best story in this World Cup. And
it has the potential to be one of the most fun rugby games that any of us have seen in a long time.
Unbelievably so. It's going to be box office. I can't fucking wait.
Although
should
Fiji, like they played Georgia, they were not very Fiji against Georgia at the weekend.
Well, this is well, shall we move on to the other meaningful game this weekend? Which maybe that's not being fair on Japan Samoa, which was also meaningful, but yeah.
But was also just bad.
It wasn't that good though, was it?
Really bad.
Yeah. Fiji, Georgia then. Was this Georgia being a lot better than they have been, or was it Fiji just really fucking it quite badly? Because I feel like it's
both.
I think both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Georgia also fucked it though, is the thing. Like they had an outstanding first half and then just completely struggled to like build their lead out any further than it already was. And it's so hard to kind of quantify why that was.
It felt like they came out for the second half and they were like, the thing is, guys, Fiji need to get in the quarterfinals. Like, Australia can't go in the quarterfinals. They're too bad. So, like, we need to let Fiji go in the quarterfinals. Because, like, Fiji were on the ropes. So Fiji were over the ropes in the first half. Like, they looked cooked, dusted, done, finished,
they looked
gone.
Tired is what they looked. Real tired, which given.
And I don't know if they had one eye on the quarterfinals. I don't know if it was because they did have a week off. Like maybe they needed the momentum. Like maybe the fact that they had a week off sort of cooked them a bit. I don't know what it was. I thought it was a really interesting game. It really drew me in watching it. Like but it felt like Georgia came out in the second half and went, we don't actually want to win this game anymore, so we're just not going to.
So it was very little of Semi Andrandra as well.
Yeah, I mean he's increased. Like we don't need to sort of go back over how much I love Semi, but like
let's talk about hot rugby players some more.
Yeah. But like he's had a real bad World Cup.
He hasn't been great, has he?
Let's not, from the.
I think he played well against Australia.
Yeah, although he was responsible for that try by just switching off. It's
like he didn't by any means play badly against Wales, but he did drop that ball. So that's all anyone's going to remember,
Well, it was like they went, well, you can't be trusted at centre because Nick Tompkins has made you look like a fool twice. So we're going to stick you on the wing.
Yeah.
Where you don't really know what you're doing either, but hopefully it will be less damaging that way. And like it kind of has been, but also not.
Suggestion: Semi at fullback against Portugal.
Why not?
Fuck it.
Semi.
It's where he said he was going to play when he came from rugby league. So make it happen.
There are players in rugby who like I find myself rooting for. And I don't even know why. Like, obviously, there are players who, if they used to play for your team or they used to, whatever. Like, there are players who you root for. But there are some players who I just unconditionally love and root for. And I don't know why. And, like, sort of Semi Radandra, like, Levante Body is a massive one for me. I'm just like, I don't care what he's doing. I just want him to be happy and doing it the best that he can. And he always is. Like, it's
he probably saved Fiji.
I think he's like one of the players of the tournament so far. Like he was so good against Australia.
I think he's the best jackler of the ball since David Pocock retired in World Rugby. He's unbelievable.
And he also had that it was a very rare thing when a player can take over a game.
Yeah.
Bottia did that in the second half. He was just like, nah, fuck that. I'm him. I am going to win this game on my fucking own if I have to.
His assist
basically did
for arch abuser Vinaya Hambossi, but which was incredible. And obviously, Hambossi didn't do anything to finish that because he's a prick. But Levani Bottia, like his assist for that was incredible. And obviously, it's one of those things where the commentator has to mention he used to be a centre, and it's like, you know what, you are right to bring that up right now because
but he actually still is. Like, who gives a fuck about the number? Like, that's just a number. Like, numbers are made up. Like, I think there are, you sort of tend to go, but like no team is one player or like no player is more than their team. But I think had he started against Wales, Fiji would be on 3 from 3 right now in this tournament. Like he's that good and he's having
Wales
that good tournament. 100%.
It's still really weird that he didn't start in that game because when he came on, it was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
We all shat ourselves as Welsh fans.
Yeah.
And like, I think
I'd agree.
really well.
Yeah.
On the other flank, Tanguy Valo, I think he's been excellent. I also think Luke Tanguy at tight head has been like brilliant for Fiji.
Yeah.
He's like been such a huge revelation for them.
Yeah, everyone's sort of like it is a sort of symptom of how like we're still talking about Fiji in the way that we always like sort of in a slightly pat on the head, don't they play rugby the right way sort of thing. But it's like Fiji's teams of the past would have got scrummaged off the park by
I don't think that they play particularly quote unquote Fijian rugby anymore.
No, they don't.
Like they just play really fucking well all the time.
Like their set piece and kicking game has allowed them to do all of the,
and this is without Caleb Muntz. Like the whole thing before this tournament was, oh shit, they don't have Caleb Muntz.
Really good.
Really
Other than,
good.
like,
really good.
The fact he can't kick goals, which has hindered them a little bit. Also really weird, like against Australia, Kuravoli at 9 was like unbelievable. It completely shut the bed against Georgia. And they really needed Frank Lamani in that second half.
I thought it was such a compelling game because you couldn't really figure out why it was happening, and then it sort of changed the other way, and you couldn't figure out why it was happening that Georgia were throwing the game away. And I felt like I was watching a different sport. I felt like I was watching a sport that I knew nothing about because I was like, I understand so little of why. I understand what's happening, but I don't understand why.
It felt a lot like Georgia sort of did not expect to be where they were at half time. And then the second half started, and it's like, well, we've got to start, they're going to come back at us. So we got to not just kick goals now. We got to kind of go for the corner. We got to score tries. And it's like, no, lads, just keep doing what you're fucking doing.
Yeah.
And because they sort of basically did a slightly shitter version of what Wales did. It was like, take the points, kick deep to them, put them under pressure, make them attack from deep or kick the ball away, because neither of those things are things that they want to do.
Yeah, like when they went to 9-0 up, you were like, they are doing this the right way. Like, this is what they should be doing to win this game. And then they just stopped doing it. I was like,
yeah,
that was working. If you were winning 9-0, if you just kept doing that.
And one thing, like a stark contrast. In the first half, I think David Niniashvili played really, really well moving to the wing. I think like he was able to like come in field and just take all of the like game management stuff on himself when somebody else was on the floor, and I think it really worked. Then second half, I think like a kind of a microcosm of what you were saying, Josh, that like kind of thought, oh, okay, I've got to open up now. I've got to still take everything on myself, but in an attacking sense. Like, no, you don't want to do a shit version of what Wales did. You want to do a shit version of what England did and against Argentina, and like just take all the drop goals and shots at goal and just milk penalties out of them. And just like, if you're going to beat this Fiji team, and you need to frustrate them, and don't get me wrong, like this is a harder Fiji team to frustrate than some of the ones in years gone by. But you've got to chance your arm at that because they are not an easy team to beat,
And they are still quite an inconsistent team, Fiji. We were talking about, players who come in and look brilliant one week and then look shit the next week. They do still have that about them.
Yeah,
I think they're a little bit wasteful as well. I thought that when they played England in that warm-up game, and I know that they won, but I think that was the kind of game where I watched it and it was like, what a moment that, Fiji won in Twickenham, but it was the kind of thing where you had that nagging feeling of like, if they played this game again, I don't know, would they win? Like, and I think that there's still a little bit of that, but like they are winning games, and I think that they have it in them to win a quarterfinal.
Yeah, they do.
Should they get there, of course.
Especially against England. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
There are still deciding games in all of the pools. I think there are deciding games in a way. Like Ireland Scotland is technically a deciding game. But yeah, I think that I thought it was a really interesting game, and I think Georgia probably have the poorest return of any team in this tournament. I feel like Georgia deserve more than they've gotten in a way. But then, like, maybe they'll beat Wales and that'll be their more than they've gotten. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. And, like, it says a lot about Wales, a lot about Georgia, that Wales have not rotated nearly as much as you would probably have expected them to.
Because they rotated against Portugal and shat themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And he's gone, I'm not going to do that again then.
And the players who've come in have actually earned their spot,
Yeah, exactly. You can't really...
But you can't knock Rio Dyer, Dowie Lake, Gareth Anscombe, like...
Yeah.
They've all played well.
Finally got a break,
Yeah.
unless it's come in and play again.
Like Warren Gatland looked at it and was like, I can't risk Mason Grady, not again. I can't do it twice.
And I completely agree, to be honest.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to I know that other games happened last weekend, but let's be honest.
No, they didn't.
59. Yeah. Argentina put 60 points on Chile. Scotland put 80 points on Romania. South Africa put 50 points on Tonga at the end.
I mean, I guess the Scotland game, in a way,
it was fun.
Like it's interesting to me in the context of Ireland-Scotland, because I thought that Scotland were dog shit against Tonga, even though they beat them by like 50 points. I thought they were really bad. And I thought that they were
shit against Tonga as well.
They were. But I thought that Scotland were much better in this game. And you obviously put in all the opposition caveats and the, it's Romania and blah, blah, blah. But if you watch like the Tonga game and the Romania game, I think that Scotland have gotten better in their 3 games in this tournament. Like they started against South Africa, but I thought that they were much improved against Romania. And like, even though it was, an 80-point hammering of Romania, it was enough to give me like a tiny bit of pause ahead of this game against Ireland. I was like,
got Darcy Graham content as well.
They might fucking pull it together for this one game here. And I thought Ben Healy was excellent. Ben
Healy was very
great.
Good.
Yeah. He had a howler first 15 minutes, and you sort of forget that he's only ever played one game that wasn't a friendly in international rugby ever. And he's like 18 years old or whatever, and he could have like buckled after that 15 minutes. But I think like he's such a physical 10 because he's massive, like he's actually huge. And like
Josh, we've let Patricia talk about a monster player.
No, I just thought he was really good.
He was brilliant.
I think that his hands just before contact are great because he's that big. He can carry it that close because you don't know if he's going to carry it or let the pass off. And of course, he got like 800 out of 800 off the kicking tee or whatever it was. And he's very pretty.
Nice little shimmy step there as well, which I didn't think he had in his locker.
Yeah, he didn't use to run. He only started running like 6 months ago. It's been a great addition to his game, to be honest. But like
Greg Townsend's influence.
Yeah,
I thought he really grew into the game in a way that like it wasn't a guarantee that he would do. And like obviously his kicking is
he was
faultless. Like, but yeah, I thought he was great. And I think that he's probably done enough to earn that bench spot for this weekend's game. I think I would like to see him there.
Especially
I think that
Pink Blair Horn's going to be playing 15.
And
why would you deprive yourself of Blair Kinghorn at 15 just to move him to 10, so that you can put somebody else, put fucking Carl Stain on the bench or something? I don't know, man. I don't see the logic in it.
Both,
Yeah.
If you go 5-3, you can have
kind of sad for me in a way because like that would make it sort of Healy versus Crowley on the bench this weekend, and it was just never supposed to end up this way. We were never. It wasn't meant to be like this. Like we've
refereed by Joey Carberry.
Yeah. Joey's looking at it like these guys are both fucking children, and
I'm telling you, man. Joey Carberry's going to requalify for the All Blacks. He's going to declare. It's going to happen.
He was great against the Barbarians on the weekend in a friendly in front of 18 people.
South Africa just were waiting for their week off, I feel.
Yes.
Planning where they were going to go for dinner. Argentina were fine.
The only thing about South Africa is that it's kind of annoying how like not shit Dion Fourie is at being a hooker.
I know.
Like it's one thing to be able to throw because like anyone can learn how to throw, but like their scrum was pretty good as well. And it's like this is meant to be like a specialist skill. I mean, it doesn't matter because obviously Ireland and Scotland are engaging in match fixing, so South Africa's will turn into the end of their tournament.
I really look forward to the conversation we're going to have next week when Scotland.
I just think
on the halfway line.
Imagine being the person who goes to Peter O'Mahony. Look, we know it's your 100th cap this weekend, but what we're going to do is get battered by Scotland on purpose. Like, I just would have liked to seen that conversation.
Well, maybe they could just be like, and if you don't do this, somebody's going to go and pull weed killer over all of your lovely plans.
I love Tom Savage from Three Red Kings' point where he said we're going to throw the game so we can play a harder opposition that we're less likely to beat.
Literally, it's so. But like, the problem is that like the caliber of journalists in Ireland are so bad that they're all taking it quite seriously, and they keep like asking Jack Nienaber about it.
Yeah.
Everyone's taking this thing seriously.
But it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Why are you still asking Jack Nienaber about this? And he's like, "Oh, I'm sure they won't throw the game because that would not be allowed. And also, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And also, elite teams don't throw games. What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Incredible.
It's so unserious, unbelievable.
Oh, right then. I don't have anything else to say about the weekend unless you guys do.
Nor me.
I don't even remember what games happened.
Good. With that case, then we should welcome back our non-playing patrony types for a bit of shit good. Hi. Like, you missed some properly intense,
scorching takes.
So many scorching takes. The sort of takes that you'll never see in public because we just wouldn't allow it.
Because the copyright blocked.
You can't talk about the World Cup in public.
No, exactly. Well, Bill Beaumont comes and literally just slaps some fucking masking tape over your face.
But you can't see it. He's actually on this call, like just writing down.
He's on all rugby-related calls. He's just a little guy in the window, and no, you can't see him, but we all can. It's really, he's intimidating. I tell you what. Should we do some shit good then?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
You guys can go first. I don't have anything to say.
Shit, World Rugby.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. The
fact that they've copyright struck Wayne Barnes is
really, really funny.
It's a proper low, isn't it? I've obviously just spent the last kind of 2-3 weeks just shit talking World Rugby, the Rugby World Cup, and Bill Beaumont on Twitter.
Just replying to Bill Beaumont is my favorite thing whenever I open that app. It's like, you know, when it like refreshes but doesn't go up to the top, so you can see like 3 profile pictures and it tells you like whose tweets are going to be there when you scroll up. It's like, I'll see your profile picture and I'm like, well, Will's replied to Bill Beaumont again.
I have tweet notifications on for Bill Beaumont, and every single time he tweets, I just decide to reply to it, talking about how great the game is and how great the values of our sport are, and that it's just really good for society that rugby exists.
But like that's literally what Wayne Barnes was saying, and then Bill Beaumont was like,
no.
How dare you?
He didn't just censor rugby. He censored rugby values.
Yeah. Honestly,
there's
no coming back from this. It's
in a way that is the most rugby values thing you could do.
It's possibly the worst. Like, of all the things that have happened in this World Cup with copyright stuff, which have been many and stupid. Like, literally, the guy who is, unless they get there, please God, don't let them get there. The guy who's almost certainly going to be reffing the World Cup final literally can't even post something to his own Twitter account that is. It's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Rugby is so fucking stupid.
And like, I understand that it's probably an automatic thing, right? Like, I don't think that, you know, there are people in World Rugby's office sitting there trolling Twitter for, you know, seeing that Wayne Barnes posted a clip of someone shaking his hand. But also, stop it. Just
stop doing it. Just
you know what
this thing is.
You know, Will's having to claymation fucking rugby games to use in videos because they can't use videos.
So difficult making these, but
it's just pathetic.
You know what's absolutely insane? So the other thing, along with just replying to everything Bill Beaumont says, because it's funny, every time like a rugby values thing comes up on my timeline, I just tag Bill Beaumont like we're buddies, because I know that's the sort of shit he's into and I want to make his day. But on that Wayne Barnes thing, because it's rugby values of shaking hands, I tagged Bill Beaumont saying, oh, you wouldn't get this in any other sport. And that got like, I don't know, like 10 likes as the tweet was. And then the whole thing about the video getting removed happened. And then I think everybody saw that and read it in a different light. Like I'm really angrily atting Bill Beaumont saying, you won't get this in any other sport, removing clips of the biggest showpiece event, which is actually true. So the fact that has a double meaning says so much about this stupid, dumb World Cup that no one is allowed to watch.
But it's like I'm in France and I haven't seen one clip of fucking anything because everything is geo-blocked in France, even the things that they do post. It's like it's the World Cup. How are you geo-blocking it? Like this is for the world.
I've come home for a week and I've seen a few friends, which believe it or not, I have a couple, and asked them like, "Do you know that there's a Rugby World Cup going on?" And they've said no. This is meant to be the third biggest sporting event in the world, behind the Olympics and the Football World Cup. It's meant to be that, and people don't know it's happening. It's so badly marketed.
Let's put it this way, right? And it's not actually something that I want to talk about, but the I don't know if word has reached the UK of the bedbug situation in Paris at the moment, right?
Yes.
But every bit of news coverage about the bedbug situation is about Paris need to get this sorted out before the Olympics, which is being held here next year. And like the 2024 Summer Olympics is in Paris, and there is no mention of the worldwide sporting event that is currently happening here. Like it's all about like Paris are going to need to fumigate the trains before the Olympics. It's like, well, what about the World Cup? It's on literally right now.
What about the beds that people are literally sleeping in? Where the
please, can we not talk about it? As someone who's in Paris and like, let's not. But it's just like there is absolutely like I don't think anyone knows that there's even sometimes I forget that it's happening, and I'm like, why am I in this country? What am I here for?
Yeah. I had so many moments where I've had to just stop and go like, oh wait, I'm in France right now. That's so weird and unlikely. Like I'm flying to Nantes tomorrow morning, and like I don't feel like we're in the middle of the World Cup. I keep forgetting about it because
there's
no way of like
strange tournament
watching coverage and stuff. And like there's people on Twitter like kind of like Jared Wright and EK Rugby Analysis and like all those kind of people who are like trying to post genuinely great, really insightful stuff, which will help people learn about the game and help keep people engaged with the game. And instead, World Rugby are just going, no, don't, shush. It's a secret. It's the secret World Cup. You can't tell anyone about this.
It's just, it's unbelievable. Like it's almost admirable how well they fucked it. Like you almost have to take your hat off to them in a way.
It's like if you wanted to sort of hide the World Cup from as many people as possible, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And yet we will hear all of the same bollocks after this from Bill Bowman.
Yeah.
Basically saying like, oh, we grew the game massively. We brought it to a huge global audience. It's like you fucking didn't, mate.
Literally, no, you didn't.
Like,
provably, no, you didn't.
Going to be watching rugby in 10 years. Like, regardless of the concussion lawsuit and whether they go free to air, nobody is going to be watching.
Physically, won't be able to get it there. Yeah.
And look, like I did slightly get in trouble last week for tweeting about this, and like I'm fine with that because you know what? Like none of us will be able to get paid to watch, to talk about rugby, write about rugby, or cover rugby, and there'll be like no money in the game at all if they carry on the way they're going. It's just ludicrous.
And this is the thing that like it is not just about the fucking rights holders who've paid a lot of money. It's like the entire ecosystem of rugby union culture revolves around, I don't know, being able to watch the fucking game.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about the game and discuss the game.
I know that people talk about like, the rights holders have paid a lot of money and like that they've paid that money for exclusivity. But like, and people talk about the law and stuff, but like one, that's not really how the law works, but anyway, but like it's just like their exclusivity does not mean that other people cannot grow the game, and like the reach that they're just willfully missing out on just makes no sense whatsoever. Like probably 95% of the content I've seen around this World Cup has been about the fact that you can't watch any of the fucking World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
there is a problem here.
Go on, Josh.
It's a meme now,
It is, yeah.
And, at the same time, you look at other sports that are not quite so fucking hat stand and not quite so sort of insecure about themselves. Like, I'm not being funny. If you want to go on the internet right now and find footage of this weekend's fucking Jacksonville Jaguars Atlanta Falcons game on Twitter, you can find it in both real world and virtual Toy Story mode. There's loads of fucking... There's clips all over the internet about that. And you know what? The NFL doesn't give a fuck. Because every single person who's looking at those things is
watching NFL. You know,
Yeah.
It's such a weird misunderstanding of what what they're paying, like what they're paying for and what the broadcasters are paying for.
Yeah.
And it's
what social
so
media
strange.
is.
Yeah.
It's so strange that it's happened so suddenly, because it doesn't, like, this doesn't happen in like the Six Nations or in the Heineken Cup or whatever. It's really weird. And like say about the NFL, like I watch a lot of athletics, right? Athletics is my favorite thing in the world. That is rugby. And like they stream every day of championships, like the full day on YouTube, and then there are clips of everything everywhere, and you can watch, if I say like I'll tune in for the final of the pole vault and go, oh, I want to remind myself what happened in qualifying, I can watch that easily, and it's really easily accessible. You can find it in like 6 different places. But like that doesn't mean that the BBC's coverage isn't, like, it doesn't lessen the broadcast version of it, because that has its merits as well. And I know that the broadcast version of these rugby games is shit, but that's a separate issue. Like that's an ITV problem.
And like,
it's
what
just
you want
weird.
You want like viral moments, like that thing with the NFL you were on about earlier. And like, it's one thing that women's rugby's done really well is it's catered towards like TikTok market and all that sort of stuff. It's actually actively tried to engage young people and new audiences and crossover fans from like other sports, rather than going, oh, but we're better than footballers because we wouldn't go down like that. Shut up, you fucking stupid boomer. Like, try and actually engage people rather than just going like, oh no, nobody's allowed to watch this. Like, you want viral moments. You want like Portugal's triumph in the weekend to be unavoidable.
Hundreds of millions of views that they are missing out on, of like,
things like miss out on.
Yeah, they're willfully missing out. Like things like the Portugal anthem, which is just one of the, like, every game that they play is an absolute like privilege to watch them sing that anthem. And like, you could have had that posted for the past 3 games and millions of people would have seen it and gone, oh, that looks cool. I wondered if anything else cool happened in that game.
How much fun shit did Darcy Graham do on the weekend? And how much have you seen of it since the full-time whistle? Like, like, he must have done like 85,000 fun things on the weekend. And literally, I've not seen a single thing about the game since the final whistle blew.
Because you can't say anything about the game. You're not allowed.
Do you want to know what I think it genuinely is? And
go on.
Like, I'm putting my very cynical fucking media hat on here.
Yeah.
Is that it's all basically the whole plan for this thing has been, we will use this World Cup to make rugbypass.tv a thing.
Yeah. And that's not happening.
And it's obviously not happened because nobody gives a fuck. But like, by putting all of the highlights, not just on Rugby Pass, but hidden behind you've got to sign up for this thing that is such a huge barrier to entry.
Yeah.
They're genuinely just saying, like, we don't care about the things that are actually meaningful. All we care about is getting sign-ups.
Yeah.
To Rugby
They're not trying to grow rugby, they're trying to grow rugbypass.tv. And
Yeah.
no casual fan is going, this sport looks quite good, let's sign up to Rugby Pass TV.
Well, let's put it this way. Like, I don't think that any of us can be considered casual fans, considering I'm sitting in fucking Paris right now. I have not signed up to rugbypass.tv, and I don't really intend to either.
No.
I sometimes work for Rugby Pass, and I'm not signed up to Rugby Pass. You know?
I mean, yeah. I'm an enemy of Rugby Pass and their editorial team, as we all know. But like, I just find it, like, as somebody who works in like digital media, I've seen this play a lot from people who are sort of very determined to kind of take back some media control from social networks. And like, I get it, because like, they are, if they're serving ads on, and this is going to be very inside baseball, I apologize, but like, they're serving ads on rugbypass.tv content, they're going to make vastly more money off those ads than they will pre-roll on YouTube or Twitter or anywhere else, because basically, you know, YouTube.
It just feels very short-sighted to prioritize that money off what you would get sort of
growing the game
over the next few years, in terms of if people see it on Twitter and then they go and watch a game, or they, you know, watch more rugby on TV. Like, it just seems like they've really fundamentally and really suddenly misunderstood everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's because, but it's World Rugby buying Rugby Pass was weird from the off, right?
Mm-hmm.
it was always felt like such a weird thing, like a governing body buying the largest media outlet of that sport.
Buying that
Always
place that steals everyone's memes. Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah. But like when you think about it, like Rugby Pass before World Rugby bought it was obviously funded by like VC and like venture capital sort of stuff, and was like in a classic tech company sense, kind of hoovered up all rugby media and threw a load of money at it in a sort of classic tech startup way, and then went, well, we're not ever going to have a plan to actually make this profitable. We're just going to convince somebody to buy it and then let them deal with it. Then they presumably didn't get the people who they wanted to buy it. But World Rugby sort of found themselves in a position where they were like, well, if Rugby Pass goes under, then like a huge amount of rugby media will disappear overnight. And even fewer people will talk about us than they were anyway. So World Rugby probably kind of almost out of like just purely to preserve the sort of rugby media around the sport. We're like, well, we're going to have to buy Rugby Pass. And now they've got this media organization that they probably don't even really want, that they have to try and somehow kind of make into a profitable media enterprise so they can fucking palm it off to someone else. And so that's where Rugby Pass TV comes from. That's where so much of their like horrendously negative content that is just kind of seems to be stoking all of the worst stuff that they've put in this World Cup. So much ref chat, so much controversial decision chat, instead of actually talking about the games. I just think it only.
I find it really, really funny that there's so much ref chat and controversial decision chat about decisions that you can't see because you can't go and look at them to understand what they're even talking about. It feels like they had a really panicked reaction to the wrong thing. Like it sounds like they, it feels like they saw an issue and misunderstood what the issue was, and then, like you said, bought Rugby Pass. It's like, what the fuck did you do that for?
It's a course correction that is sort of like over.
They corrected the wrong course.
They've overcorrected the course, and it's really just like, I don't want to go into this too much now because
I would just quickly confirm that World Rugby are not going to buy Squid Rugby as a corporation. I'm just going to quickly throw that out there.
That's the thing. World Rugby would have been better off buying Squid Rugby than they were buying Rugby Pass, but they're stuck with it now, and so they're trying to by forcing us into this Rugby Pass TV world.
Either way, I'm getting censored.
One way or another, they're coming for your free speech.
It's personal towards you at this point, Will, to be honest.
Yes. Hey, I was told otherwise. It's fine.
Yeah, I appreciate, well, obviously you work for Rugby Pass. I wouldn't expect you to weigh in on this with like.
I am not going to publicly confirm nor deny that anything you have said is completely factually and objectively correct.
Good. That's all we asked for. Right.
Yes.
Should we shit's good from the listenership then. Mary Williams, a friend of the pod, genuine all-round legend, says shit, but also good. Has anyone else watched Grand Slammers?
Yeah, I watched the first episode last night.
I purposely didn't watch it because I felt like I just, it was
exactly what I expected it to be.
It's such a weird one. And so pretty, and Mary says it's shit, but also somehow good, and it is like because it
was all right.
But I tell you, and Dennis Suter chimes in. Shit is that ITV literally programmed episode 2 of that program, which, bearing in mind, must have spent a lot of money to get the entire 2020. All of the notable people from.
That's why you said the entire and then rolled it back to only the notable.
Ben Cohen.
Yeah. The people you've heard of from the 2003 squad who haven't got traumatic brain injuries, which I've been desperate for somebody to mention where Steve Thompson is in all this, by the way. It's like, oh yeah, he's not invited to the pints, is he? But like that must have cost ITV a fuckload of money. And they decided to program episode 2 directly opposite at the same time as Japan Samoa. And they put episode 2 on ITV1 at the same time as Japan Samoa was on ITV4.
Oh,
like,
rugby is
have
the
you ever
most brain
you ever
dead,
seen anyone
stupid.
disrespect for the sport that you're like covering? That it's like,
That's
yeah, we're not even
incredible.
going to bother putting this game on ITV1, and
I will add,
we're actually going to put something for rugby fans on ITV1 that we think they'll like more than this live game of rugby at a World Cup.
genuinely though, in that there is a point where Johnny Wilkinson rocks up to do like goal kicking coaching, and he genuinely says, the first thing he says is, "Oh, you need to send a message to the ball." Again, he has said that multiple times now, and he does all of this like this whole like psychological kind of bollocks, which is like, if you're talking to Johnny Wilkinson, I get it, like he's got an extremely complicated mind, Johnny Wilkinson. I have so much respect for him. He's like the best goal kicker of all time. But he's talking to fucking prisoners there. They're going to look at him and just go, what?
And yet, it made them all much better goal kickers. Now, obviously, there's editing involved in there, but I do feel like his, like, even though I was exactly the same, it was like, oh my god, he's talking to the ball.
Johnny's off again.
But like, it fucking like it works, and you can see why he's a very effective. Like, it's when he talks on ITV, he sounds like somebody who's basically like fallen out of a new age commune, but for rugby players.
Yes.
And he has almost no insight. But you can put him in that situation and go, all you need to do, Johnny, is teach these people who don't know how to kick a ball how to kick a ball a bit better. And he's like, oh yeah, I could do that. I'll do that in 10 minutes. Don't worry. And it works and it's effective. And it's like, that's what Johnny Wilkinson is good at. It's not putting him in an ITV studio with Clive Woodward.
Yeah. I'll also add on that. Ben Cohen comes out that looking like a complete cunt.
He does.
Phil Vickery comes out exceptionally well. Like, yes. I love that Phil Vickery has the talking head where he just goes, yeah, so essentially I wasn't a dirty player, but I wanted everybody to look at me and think, I don't want to pick a scrap with him because he'll beat the fuck out of me. And I wanted to beat everyone in scrums and rucks and so on. I just wanted to like be much harder than everyone else. And I love that, like extremely transparent.
I thought it was really interesting on that, you know, Vickery was quite a sort of moral absolutionist, and you can tell that he's not really sort of spent much time with people, you know. Well, you could see he was hanging around with fucking the royalty in their royal box with the arch dickhead and the worst person on this program. Whereas like people like Delalio have actually spent a fair bit of time, you know, working with these sort of people. And, you know, Vickery starts off a very moral absolutionist, you know, these are bad people and they did bad things, so they should be in prison. And then it just cuts to him speaking to that guy who was like, oh yeah, well, my partner sort of hung herself in our house and then I had to find it. And then I got into drugs. And then they told me to do one job for them and my debt would be cleared. And then I got arrested and now I've been sent to prison for 10 years. And you could just sort of see the fucking air come out of Vickery's sort of moral balloon where he was like, oh yeah, that doesn't really sound
every time.
That sounds like you're a victim of a terrible system, actually. It's like, yeah, funny that, Phil.
Cocaine possession came up, the awkward side-eyeing to Laurent Delalio that went on was incredible. And somebody even says at one point, I expected that if 9 of us ended up together in a prison, we'll be here to visit LOL, you know. Which is like
there was some incredibly bad forced banter, but it was weird. It was interesting. Like, it was very sad to sort of be like, hey, rugby is, you know, this ultimate team sport that like makes bonds for life. And then they were like, yeah, we won the Rugby World Cup and we haven't spent any time together outside of a TV studio for 20 years. And we need ITV to pay us to go to a pub together and have some pints. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's the actual reality of it, isn't it?
I also just feel like maybe a group of, you know, old men's rugby players are not the people to sort of delicately sort of dance around the issues with, you know, imprisonment and
mass incarceration,
justice system, and like, you know, let's send Lawrence Delalio in to sort of straighten this out. Like, I didn't watch it. I might have to watch it because I mean, I feel like you've given me a
Patricia,
more fun summary than actually watching it.
Basically, yeah, like it's sort of like hard. It's like hard. The School of Hard knocks harder. It's it.
And with
Well,
more
The thing
petty
with
messages
school,
to balls.
the thing with School of Hard Knocks is that like sometimes Scott Cornell was on it, and that just makes anything
exactly.
automatically more entertaining.
I did feel like Will Greenwood was sort of looking around, going like, I've done this
Yeah.
before, but with more fun people. Matt Dawson definitely wasn't here. It is a tough one. Quickly on the shits then, Callum Forsyth says, shit is people complaining about longer pool stages when the alternative is Georgia having a 4-day turnaround. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Dom Prone says, shit, Italy, just everything about the way that they did it went to shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, do you know what the worst part of that was? Was Richie McCaw and Conrad Smith like standing up and clapping and celebrating the Italy try at the end of the game. I genuinely think that I would end my life if I looked up and saw, like two of the most legendary rugby players of all time sort of like condescendingly clapping.
I would ask for the ref to disallow it.
In the 80th minute consolation try that I scored. Like, it was actually like the worst part of that game, and I was saying fucking something.
I would turn to the ref and go, "Oh no, I dropped it." Oh no,
shame. Should we move on to good then, and end this on a high note?
Yeah, good. I'm just going to quickly say, Geronimo Portea, excellent, always is, and also because I will never ever go on a podcast about rugby and exclusively talk about men's rugby. Alex Callender was fucking incredible at the weekend. She's genuinely world class these days. Whether it's starting fights, finishing fights, getting turnovers, chop tackles, or scoring tries, she's incredible.
Yeah, very impressive win for Wales. I thought that, against the Canada. I know it wasn't a full Willie Canada team, but it was.
They're so. I feel like they like. It's not suddenly, because like it makes sense because of they've started being given like the attention and the funding and the resources, etc. But I feel like they've so quickly become such a complete rugby team, Wales women. Like, it was when they beat Ireland, who obviously were at the time at the start of like an extreme downslide to not qualifying for the World Cup and to where they are now in WXB3. But like that felt like a sort of a moment, and it was like, they sustained that into the World Cup, but it was sort of like, where's it going to go after this? Like, is this like a long-term thing, or was this like a like a short, like a boost from like that immediate, and it just feels like it's really quickly just become actually really fucking good.
If in WXV we've got Flaky George starting at 10, we're going to be like bulletproof against like Australia and hopefully Canada, hopefully we can beat them.
Big time. Ian Gareth says, good is the utterly unhinged lunacy going on in the build-up to Ireland, Scotland. I really enjoyed it.
I love it. That's
I'm having
black.
Twitter is great. Shout out the Scottish Rugby Podcast. Like,
and Tom things.
Yeah, I find it so funny that like as an Irish supporter and an Irish person, like watching Irish supporters get like actually wound up by the shit that Cammy and Johnny are posting, as if they're not like literally laughing at you. Like, it's so fucking funny watching people like publicly pull down their pants on the timeline and have a shit in them. Like, it just like either scroll past, log off, like they are laughing at you.
Cammy's saying what a great career Johnny Sexton's had as he runs out for Ireland for the final time on the weekend.
Oh my god, and like the amount of people who responded to the photo of Casement Park being like, they were gonna develop it if Ireland had got like it's, oh my god, it's really fun.
Great
I really enjoy
more of it.
Yeah, I liked one of my favorite ones, which I actually said to Johnny, was like, he had sort of lived long enough to see himself become the villain, and I was really here for it, was when he weighed in on the zombie discourse and said, Ireland think that stealing a song from the only province who's won something in the last few years would make them win. Maybe they should try picking some of their fucking players.
It's great stuff. I love it.
Good stuff. It's really good
this
stuff.
Is what, this is rugby values to me.
It really
This is what the World Cup is all about.
Rugby values. Speaking
of rugby values, do you know who I think has had a really good tournament, and I just love him to the ends of the earth? It's Ben Tamiafuna. I thought he was excellent again.
Really
and he's
good.
Fucking
really
scoring.
good.
He's like averaging a try a game now, and like he's just great. And I love a guy who looks like that playing in the World Cup, because
I'm here for it.
his playing weight, as per the Rugby World Cup website, is 151 kgs, and he runs every single one of them. And he's just a large guy playing great rugby at the highest level, and like watching him try and put on Sia Khaleesi's jersey.
I was
just
going to
made
say,
me so happy.
Sia jersey swap was so good.
I just think he's great. I really love him.
Like we've seen so many props get themselves into trouble by going like, yeah, I'm going to attempt to put on a jersey that's far too small for me, and he was just like, well, this is just not even. I'm not going on my wall. I'm not going to do anything to stretch it in the meantime.
Big Ben's captaincy style is you go the first 95 meters, I'll go the last 5, and I love it.
But like, who the fuck is going to stop him from 3 meters out?
Exactly.
Be serious, like.
Absolute unit.
I always remember
such an effective game plan. Like, we have this guy literally the size of an Arctic lorry. Like, let him run 2.5 meters. You're going to score every single time. They could win the World Cup on this game plan.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I remember years and years ago seeing an American football documentary. It was like a high school thing or whatever, and they just had this like absolute beef tank of a running back who was just like, and it's like, yeah, we get inside the 20 and we give it to the big boy, and it's like. And it's like, and yeah, I know and like, give us the big boy. He's like, yeah, he'll get you 3, he'll get you 4 yards every play. He's like, well, what if you need 5 yards on the play? He's like, he'll get you 4 yards. it's like, understand what you have, but it's like fine. You'll get us 4 yards every play, and that's all we'll need. And if you need 5 yards, then we're gonna have a problem. And that's basically that's basically Samoa's entire like. And Tonga's Tonga's entire sort of attacking thing is like, well, Ben's going to score, and from 5 yards out, nobody's stopping him. Is what if he gets the ball 10 yards out? Well, tough shit. No, we're not scoring.
And like he played like 70 minutes. Like, I don't know if it was against South Africa or the one before, but was it Ireland they played before that? Like, I love, one of my favorite things about rugby is that like if you looked at Ben Tameifuna just like out of context, you like. There's no sort of explanation for the things that he can do, given like the size that he is. Like, he's 151 kgs. He's literally fucking ginormous. But like they are like, he is such a fit elite athlete in that like he's on that pitch for 75 minutes. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite things about rugby is like not to go all Exactly. And it's like not to go all, it's a game for all shapes and sizes, but like it is. And like it's just I just love that part of it, because you look at him and you're like, you shouldn't be able to do any of this. Like, you weigh as much as I think my car probably doesn't weigh 151 kgs. Like it's incredible, and he's playing really, really well. And I wish that we were going to see more Tonga games so that I could see more of Ben Tameifuna.
Same. Evan Quick says, good is the supposed tier 2 nations throughout the World Cup. They produce some of the best rugby. Yeah, fully agree. Good. Leading back onto the women's cricket, John Pulley says, good as Emma Orr for Scotland's women. She always gets praised for a defensive game, but at the weekend she made a couple of tries for her mates and scored her first national try.
Very promising.
Yeah, well, very well deserved for play indeed.
To have promising women's rugby. I wonder what that's like.
Finally, then, Neil Webber says, good for everything that World Rugby and ITV tried to do it to us. The rugby is all sorts of fun, and ultimately, he's right. I'm still in. As much as we've bitched and moaned about a lot of very rightly bitchable and moanable about things over the last 2 hours,
we're still sitting down for every game. Like we want to watch the games.
I'm still sort of like, I still was like, oh, there's no rugby.
The quality of rugby's been amazing. The rest of it's been a shit show.
It's interesting as well of like every game. If you were to talk about like the standout games of the tournament, apart from Ireland, South Africa, they've all involved like a tier 2 or 3 nation. It's all been Portugal games, Fiji games, Uruguay, France, Uruguay, Italy. Those are the games that are catching people's eyes. Like, nothing in Pool D. Let's just, that's
talk about the pool.
That's just there. But like, it's been such a great tournament, and it obviously comes back to what we were talking about. It like what we've talked about for the last 2.5 hours. It's just a fucking shame that we can't see more of it.
Yeah, it is. But ultimately, when we think about like all of the other things that we've whinged and moaned about over the last couple of hours, and rightly so, like the rugby still remains fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm still
Amen.
really excited to watch fucking Uruguay against New Zealand or whoever it is tomorrow night. And I'll watch every minute of it, and I'll watch every minute of what little tier 2 love that we've got left in this World Cup. And
Well, at least we'll try and watch it.
We'll try and watch it.
Like Portugal, Fiji, like that's one of my favorite things about a World Cup, is that like matchups that you would just never see otherwise. Because Portugal don't get to play anybody, and like Fiji don't really get to play that many more people either. And it's like these two, if you could cherry pick two teams in World Rugby who you just think if they played each other, it would be the most fun thing I've ever seen. 95% of people are going to pick Portugal and Fiji, and like that just feels like a privilege to get to watch that.
Agreed. Well,
we did it.
We did it. We made it.
We did it.
We somehow talked for 2 hours and 24 minutes, despite none of us having done any prep, and that is truly what rugby values are all about. Guys, thank you very much for joining me, as ever.
No, thanks for having me.
Hopefully me and Lee will actually manage to come back next week at the usual time and the usual channel. But until then, we shall bid you good night. And thanks very much. Bye.
Bye. Happy tweeting, Bob. Well done.